The guy shouted with horror, running away from the monster that he was constantly pursuing him through the thickets. Seeing the girl ahead, Ott asked if the mayor was really here all this time, but she reacted instantly and rushed forward, behind run Nock. His comrade ordered him to protect him immediately from the monster. The girl firmly promised to do her best. The young mare strongly rushed to the attack, which shocked Nocta. The sword blade slid on the body of the beast, and the monster erupted the last spooky roar. The father, the owner of the great estate of Rutherford, together with his eldest son, Wishart, arrived at the scene. Wishart became angry, learning that Noct had sent the girl to fight for himself, calling it a shame for her father's honor. He reproached that such behavior is not worthy of the aristocrat, but Noct explained that he was simply not strong enough, so he asked for help. Bart noted that Nocta would have to fight, and tomorrow he will get his strength. And the father explained that everyone has their own path, and Noct is not obliged to imitate his brother. The father advised Nocta to find his own purpose in life and never betray it, despite the opinion of others. Wishart asked why his father was always condescending to his younger one, but he replied that he was more concerned about how the orc was in the estate. Noctic thought, does anyone have a talent? Maybe someone just chose a favorite business and made it successful. Some even govern whole states. The father is a wise, kind, and real aristocrat, and Bart is harsh, serious, and seeks to go it. And the only talent of Nocta was the ability to fall asleep instantly in any situation, and it seems. This is what became his true life path. He decided to never work again once he baked on this. He was once a regular office worker in Japan, sudden chest pain, and after awakening, he found himself a baby in a noble family. In this world, all 15 years old receive a gift from the gods, and when his time comes, he will have to fight. Relatives sincerely congratulated him. And for Nocta itself, it was the most horrific birthday in life. The younger brother jokingly asked if he would allow him to at least a piece of cake, but why, it will still fall asleep immediately. Noct did not want to go anywhere. The mayor asked to return because she baked a delicious cake for him. He decided to trick, complained about a sudden ailment. But the caring mayor immediately offered the medicine. Noct asked if he would not like him, but she assured that her pocket has a great remedy for seaside. Wiscort urged him to stop taking time. Everything around was exciting, and finally, the moment was coming when Noct had to leave. The brother explained that this is a wonderful opportunity not only to get a gift, but also to see the world around him. My father wished the youngest son of new discoveries and unforgettable experiences, but Noct himself did not feel the same inspired joy as everyone around. When they arrived in the capital, Noct looked around with surprise. Everything broke out and buzzed. Life was boiling. Seeing a local tavern, he immediately thought, would there be hammocks there? One thing in the head was won, though a little lie and rest. However, the appearance of the hotel left much to be desired. The peeling walls and neglect raised doubts. Would it fall just during sleep? His generic estate was often attacked by orcs from the large forest, so everyone hoped that Noct would get some kind of fighting skill, but the guy himself dreamed of a carefree life. Arriving at the right, he introduced himself, but immediately noticed. One of the men's men anxiously reminded him of his brother. It even frightened. He was pointed out to the center of the magic circle and prepare for the ritual. When his legs touched the surface, he suddenly felt like it was in water. Everything around was vague and incomprehensible. In the distance, he noticed a female silhouette, and at the same moment he thought it should be a goddess. The guy immediately thanked her for giving him a second chance in this new world. Nocta acknowledged that his life was difficult, but his brother is stronger than any demon, and his father was kind and revered to all. He was really lucky with his family. That is why he began to be pleased to give him anything, but not a fighting skill. He does not seek to become a warrior. After all, the estate is still inherited by the brother, and he would be more auxiliary, simple, invisible. The goddess was silent. The guy asked if she was hearing him at all, and at the same moment, he found himself in the same room from which it all started. Someone reported everything was completed. Noct has already received his gift, but he did not understand how it happened too fast. He was pointed to climb the magic bowl and reach out, but not touch it. One of the guys asked if Noct was not the son of the aristocrat. If so, it lies the burden of foreign hopes. Nocta carefully asked what kind of skill they were gaining in this place and what would be waiting for him. The servant of God opened the title on which the inscription was flashed, increase and decrease. It was such a gift that was given to Noct. Noct did not quite understand what his new skill means, so he asked if it could be used in battle. The servant replied that everything is clear from the name, it is not a combat capacity. Realizing this, Noct just smiled and promised that he would even try to be useful for others. The guy politely apologized for his care and was going to go. The servant advised not to be upset. Such a pair of skills is rare, and she will still find his purpose. Noct replied that he was not upset at all. He was ready to go on his own way. In fact, he got exactly what he wanted, nothing that would oblige to battles. The girl asked why he was so happy. Noct gladly replied that he could now lie quietly on his side and not worry about anything all his life. All thanks to the goddess who fulfilled his request. Although his brother will be angry, but Noct decided to sweeten the situation with souvenirs for him and his father. He said that he bought jewelry for the maid, a miniature of the capital tower for his father, and for his brother, a bandage to the eyes, which, if he dares to wear it, would make him simply incomparable. Noct said goodbye to the girls and explained that he was returning home to continue his blessed inaction. Hearing the name of Nocta's estate, the girls suddenly packed and expressed their condolences. They hinted that something serious happened, but Noct did not understand and went on. When he arrived home, he first thought it was an illusion, but everything was real. The estate was destroyed to the ground. He realized that now you could forget about vacation. Someone completely destroyed all his plans, and in the distance, the servants shouted, "Young Mr. Noct finally returned." Noct immediately asked Joseph what happened to the estate and who could dare to such an attack. The butterfly apologized for his appearance and confessed, "This is a true horror." Joseph said the orcs were suddenly attacked. The huge army emerged from the large forest, and everything happened lightly. Noct was surprised where so many enemies could come from. He asked where his father and brother now and what happened to them. In response, only mournful silence. They have not been found yet, but the search is ongoing, and no one loses hope. Joseph explained that his father and brother had rushed to defend the estate, but it had been 4 days and no news. Noct was indignant. It cannot be so easy to defeat. But Joseph sighed. The attack was terrible, and he himself does not want to think about worse. Noct wondered how that could happen. After all, the estate has always been well fortified. Joseph apologized again, because there was still no news about the fate of his relatives. He assured that if there is at least the smallest opportunity, they will find the truth. In the meantime, the Noctis will have to take the steering wheel in your own hands. The nobleman asked what new skill the Noctis gained, because now the fate of the whole family may depend on it. Well, Noct did not go into explanation, simply showed how a tiny stone turns into a boulder in the size of a horse. This is a new skill, convenient and surprisingly simple. But no one showed much admiration. Joseph was skeptical, and how should this help them in such a critical situation? The servants began to panic. The estate is destroyed completely, to live nowhere. Noct acknowledged that they are right, and his gift here is not suitable. He immediately regretted his choice and thought that it may still be worth asking for his combat skill. After reflection, he suggested temporarily moving to neighboring possession. There are few people left. Joseph stressed that the escape of the owner from the estate is considered a betrayal for which they are punished. If Noct decides to escape, it will be the end. But the guy turned to people and honestly said that he would not be condemned. They want to stay, they want to go. He will accept everyone. But in the end, Joseph stated with sadness, there were only 3 of them left. Noct suggested that his father with his brother would soon return. It cannot be to lose the orc. But he understood deeply in his soul, everything went wrong, and he only dreamed of a new carefree life. He remembered his father's words, once a day will come when this land becomes his native, and then he will have to fight for her until the last. Noct realized that this day has come. Joseph asked what would be done now, but to the surprise of everyone, Nocta replied that first, he wanted to sleep a little. The Bagretsky could not believe that in such a situation it was possible to fall asleep. It seemed to him, not just pretends to be. But in a few minutes it became obvious the young gentleman really slept firmly. He even began to snoring without responding to anything. In a dream, Noct muttered that without his father and brother, he would not handle everything himself. Joseph said bitterly, it seems that the end of the great Samuel family came. Time passed, the servants were waiting. Joseph said with indignation that the gentleman has been sleeping for 12 hours, and apparently, he still does not understand how serious their situation is. He suggested that the mayor not waste and go to the neighboring estate because they have no resources. There is nothing left there, neither people nor provisions. Even the walls are collapsed. Monsters can attack at any moment. And no one will blame the mayor if she decides to save her own life. She realized that Joseph was right, but she didn't want to go. And suddenly Noct woke up. He wished everyone a good morning and said that the dream was doing a miracle. Feels updated. He confessed he feels born again. Joseph asked what he was, and the mayor did not restrain her and laughed gently, but Joseph recalled this is not a time for jokes. Nocta sincerely thanked that they remained with him and did not run away. After all, he really wants to return the life of these lands, but without their help, it will not cope, at least before returning your father with his brother. Nocta asked with a serious look whether they were ready to become his support in all the cases waiting for him. The mayor gladly agreed to help in the reconstruction of the land, and Joseph confessed that he was amazed at how confidently Mr. Noct was talking about his plans. Mayor added that in such a difficult hour, they should be near because no one left. Fortunately, the mansion building itself remained intact, so there is at least a roof overhead and a place for cooking. Nocta thanked for delicious tea and reminded that the well is in order, so you can safely swim and wash clothes. But whether some food remained, he decided to clarify, because it still worried him the most. Joseph and the mayor embarrassed the fears. They ate nothing from yesterday. The girl gathered everything that could be eaten, but it turned out to be critical. Noct was disappointed even for one person. Food was not enough. Most of the stocks were taken away by those who were able to escape. Mayor assured that she was on a diet, so let Joseph and Nocta eat everything. But the butterfly refused. He is a servant and has no right to touch the Lord's food. Noct did not want to look selfish, so he decided to divide the food into 3, though not enough, but it will be fair. And suddenly he remembered, he has the ability to increase. It may be possible to increase food. He is a watered. He decided to test a new skill, to change the size of objects at will. After focusing, he applied an increase, and in fact, there were more portions. Joseph and Mayor were delighted. It seemed like a real miracle. Nocta himself was surprised that everything turned out, but he felt not enough. He wanted to feed the suction of those who believed in him and stayed. After all, the father and brother should stand in this place smart, brave, but the fate decided otherwise. Sometimes it seemed to him that this world was just mistaken, considering him a worthy ruler. The mayor screamed and begged to stop. There was too much food. She was afraid of the Lord and begged. It turned out that Noct was overdone, and the size of the created serving was simply giant. However, the girl sincerely thanked his incredible gift. Now everyone will be able to eat. But Noct understood that now 3 of them lies the burden of solving all the problems, without exception. The mayor pointed to the distance. From this height, adjacent possessions seemed tiny islands on the horizon. And then Noct wondered, will he be able to build something similar in these lands, a place where people will be happy, although it is likely that he will die again from overload, as in his past life. After the horrific events, only 3 people remained in the great Somnal domain Nocta, and 2 of his faithful servants. The lands were declining, and now the new master could only rely on Mayor and Joseph. Surviving in such conditions was a real challenge. They found themselves in a difficult task, to start everything from scratch. There was a lot of work, and for the first time in his new life, Noct felt, hard work can be pleasant if it makes sense. He confessed that after work he sleeps like a baby. Joseph joked, if the gentleman knew the spirit of the common people, he would realize what was a real master. However, Joseph himself made 3 times more. Mayor, meanwhile, prepared dinner and invited everyone to relax. During the meal, Nocta praised lunch, noting the good decoration with herbs. Mayor explained that she uses different recipes to diversify the taste and please guests. She suggested starting with mussel. Noct noted that sesame oil emphasizes its bitterness. Joseph added that the mussel reduces blood glucose. The mayor prepared her fried without breading, and Nocta was delighted to say how pleasantly the bones would crunch. Joseph praised the dish perfectly restores strength after work. Then Mayor suggested to freshen up the marinated mussel. After sesame it was appropriate, but Noct confessed that the bitterness was still present. Joseph grew that acute was useful for the liver. Noct realized that Joseph did not taste too much and advised not to go. Mayor apologized. They say culinary skills are too modest. Noct replied that she was not guilty. There was almost no choice of products. He wondered how many more vegetables would last. The mayor explained that the arugula will be enough for a month, and after 2 weeks it is possible to tear the leaves. Nocta understood time is short, and in the stock only mussel. He confessed that only 2 days passed, and he could no longer look at the mussel. Its taste is sluggish, it does not saturate, and after it you only want to sleep. The body needs iron. Mayor promised to find a way out. She got a dagger, but Joseph immediately stopped her with the question of what she conceived. The girl said she just wanted to help the gentleman. Joseph was convinced there would be enough iron from the muzzle. He then asked Nocta if he did not seem a strange behavior of Mayor, but he replied that she was just trying sincerely. In the end, they are all the fellows, and it is time to sleep a little. Joseph reminded that there were many more things, but it was no longer stopped. He almost fell asleep. While the owner slept sweetly, Joseph and Mayor were just waiting. When he woke up, Joseph said they were just discussing the important affairs of the farm. Noct turned back and asked, what prevents a person from succeeding? Joseph replied that the food was needed first of all. Without good nutrition, even sleep would not be of good quality. Noct read a compiled list of problems. While Joseph said, first, offense, then food infrastructure, trade and field treatment. Noct asked the pen and added another point, food that is not related to muzzle. Joseph was surprised by this point, and Noct explained he gave the problem the highest priority, so they decided to share and act. Noct instructed Joseph to inspect the fields of Lawrence, and Mayer, the plantation of Sammy. Joseph recalled that those lands were well looked after, so there is a chance. Mayer agreed is a chance to diversify food. Nocta ordered not to waste time. Meanwhile, Noct decided to check more carefully how his new abilities work. He noticed a calm, ubiquitous jelly slim nearby. This mucus seems to have a good harvest on the field, so the young man decided to use it as a pillow. Soft and elastic mucus was felt like a real water pillow. Noct felt the aroma of berries and thought that he was ate strawberries. But when he got comfortable, he suddenly fell inside the slim and began to cough. Outraged, Noct used a decrease in mucus and was amazed. The technique worked even on a living creature. Inspired, he decided to reduce himself and found himself among the giant grass that was dumped on the jungle. But suddenly something fled. It was a bird, an ordinary long-tailed kiwi that tried to eat it. Noct realized that a rare bird that balances on the verge of extinction, and although kiwi could fly, it is not at all like others. His feathers were incredibly soft, but the bird slipped and the young owner broke down. While falling, he had time to admire the scenery from the height, but quickly remembered that he was not flying on his wings. But instead of a painful blow, a soft rocking, he landed directly on the spike. He smiled with relief and decided that such a bed would agree. The world in the miniature looked charming, though it was a little hot near the ground. Little life is not so simple. But the feelings were new and interesting. Noct enjoyed the moment until the mayor was noticed. The girl said he was looking cute and asked what he was doing so little here. Noct explained that he just tests the ability, and the mayor that through the broken fence, the fields were filled with monsters. She offered a little help and joked that she would cover him so that Joseph did not find or grumble. Noct still asked to create a shadow. The heat was unbearable for such a baby. The mayor immediately invented how to do it and created a pleasant coolness. She gently asked how her little master in the shade felt. Nocta was satisfied that it has now become much better. The sun was no longer hell, but thought again, Mayor is a really strange girl. And then Joseph suddenly appeared in surprise, asking whom she talks to. Noct realized his plan was quietly falling with a crash. Joseph was indignant and asked why the gentleman was forcing the girl to show his underwear. Noct began to defend himself, explaining that he had not asked anything. But Joseph noted that his father would definitely not approve of such. The mayor tried to explain that she decided to protect the owner from the heat, and the gentleman was here to nothing. But Joseph did not believe and ordered her to cover immediately. At this point, Noct exclaimed that he would stop so stamped, because it seems that an earthquake began. The mayor rushed to him. Nocta reassured he is whole, just scratched a little. Joseph immediately began to apologize, saying it is unacceptable, but Noct repeated everything is well. Mayor asked to show the wound. She activated her cell regeneration and immediately treated wounds. Noct was amazed. The wound disappeared without a trace. He thanked the mayor, but noticed that Joseph was still angry. So the girl asked what kind of skill she had. Mayor explained that her ability activates cells so that you can quickly treat bodies. Noct wondered, can this ability be applied to plants? Maybe it will help growing food. Mayor used the skill of accelerating cell growth and gladly reported that the plants have grown up. Nocta understood not everything is as simple as he would like. Still, he sincerely praised the girl for her effort, but instead of helping further, he decided to take a nap. The mayor tried to remind that there were many things, but Noct was already falling asleep. But it was not possible to sleep for a long time. He was awakened by strange sounds. It was a mayor who shouted loudly, trying to focus. She trained her ability, seeking to grow plants as soon as possible. Watching her, Noct again. He was really very strange. Maybe she ate something wrong and it affected her behavior. But the mayor did not seem. She rejoiced in every leaf and persuaded the plants to grow strong so that the gentleman would never be hungry. The girl said she wanted to thank Nocta for the events of 10 years ago. And Noct immediately remembered that day. The farmer was angry because someone robbed his field. Sammy demanded to find the guilty and throw it in a dungeon, otherwise he would deal with him. Nocta's father ordered the guilty to immediately and punish it. Such actions cannot be left. But Noct intervened and tried to convince Sammy that the girl did not go to the field from evil, she did it to survive. Sammy was indignant. How to survive him now after the loss? Does the gentleman think that he should just swallow it? Noct promised to compensate for the losses by selling one of the souvenirs left by his mother. He asked if the farmer would accept such a proposal. Sammy eventually calmed down. He said that he should not be sacrificed. He will handle himself. Nocta thanked for understanding. The father asked why the son defends an unknown girl. Noct recalled that the great small family is obliged to protect each of its subjects, and this girl is now under his care. When asked by a father, what if she did something bad again, Nocta replied, I am sure that this would not happen. From now on, she is his personal maid. The father was surprised to be such a decision, but did not retell. Noct asked the girl how her name is. Seeing that she was no longer threatening, she called her name. Noct immediately gave her the first task. He said the mayor should prepare him a bed. He asked if she could handle it. Everyone was shocked. The young gentleman just rescued a girl whose fate seemed doomed. And the mayor decided, now her turn to take care of her master. She tried to grow an edible plant, but there were no results. It merged her, why nothing works. It was depressed just when the gentleman needed it. She could not help. She decided that she was powerless and wasted. Watching her efforts, Noct remembered his father's words, always protect your people, and he began to think about how to become a decent heir and a real ruler. Mayor noticed that the gentleman was not sleeping, and in surprise asked why he woke up. Noct only asked her, try to use your skill again on the plant. She made another attempt, but the result was weak again. Then Noct decided to intervene. Quiet not to mention anything, he used the skill of increasing, and the plant instantly went into growth. At this point Noct realized, the gift he received is really perfect. Finally, he saw his skill be useful. Increasing and decreasing can reveal the full potential of anything. In combination with other abilities, it gives endless opportunities. He explained the mayor that he combined his skill with her ability to activate cells. At first he doubted, but everything turned out, and he asked her not to worry. Yes, their family disappeared. There is neither money nor food. But even so, Noct felt happy, because there were such wonderful people such as Mayor and Joseph. Nocta has sincerely admitted that he relied entirely on Mayor and Joseph, and wants to trust them in everything without exception. Mayor remembered her first meeting with the young lady, and promised to be true to him for the rest of his life. Joseph asked why the gentleman did not sleep and behave so strange. Noct replied that he was just busy, but they had already solved the problem with food. The next day, everything returned to the usual rhythm. Closer to noon, Mayor called everyone to lunch. This time an avocado with arugula without breading, browning asparagus, beans, peppers, and vegetable soup, which had to give maximum benefit, were on the table. Mayor explained that the dish was well balanced. And Noct, instead of evaluating the benefit, just enjoyed the taste. The mayor was satisfied with the supplement, but Noct was already full and thought that it was too much as it is. Joseph noted that the girl behaves impolite, reads the book just at the table, but Mayor replied that it was a trifle. The ingredients are now enough, and she has no excuses to learn new. Joseph asked if the gentleman made her try so, but Nocta denied he was here, and the mayor asked not to overstress. She promised to try even more to achieve better results and to earn praise. Noct thought that this approach was useful, but honestly confessed vegetables are well, but already want meat. Mayor immediately said that she would do everything now, and Joseph, seeing in her hands the blade, he was asked to stop such jokes. Then Noct decided to start recovery of the estate and used a magical earth shield. In addition to skills, there is also magic in this world. There are 6 elements: fire, water, wind, earth, light, and darkness. Nocta had the gift of managing land and fire. He created a fireball and reduced its size, improving control. He was delighted with the result, and the mayor praised him for the ignition of fire, a true disciple of the god of fire. Noct laughed and replied that the oven is the easiest of everything. The water was quickly warmed up, and he thought, for the first time in a month he will be able to take a hot bath normally. It was a real spiritual purification for him, and Joseph, as always, grumbled. But Noct was ignored and just enjoyed shiny water, the endless blue sky, full of harmony. He wondered what else is needed for happiness. Joseph was surprised. Did the gentleman enough, Mayor? The mayor confessed that she would not give up the smell of chamomile or apples, because she really wants to smell something sweet and fruit. And Joseph dreamed to see the world at least once without glasses. His lenses are constantly folding, and he must look for what to wipe them. Noct advised not to dream it is impossible, because it is only upset. But Mayor explained, tomorrow there will be a sale. Noct did not understand anything and asked what it was about. Joseph said, Raphael's merchant, an old familiar father of Nocta, with whom they had good business relationships. Mayer exclaimed that Raphael is a real legend. He can order literally everything. But earlier, Noct always missed his arrival because he slept in the daytime. Now he became interested. He stated that he wanted to buy a pillow with the memory of the form. Mayer is a flavoring with the smell of chamomile, and Joseph glasses for glasses. Everyone was glad that these little things would make their lives more comfortable. When Raphael arrived, Noct congratulated him and suggested that after a long road, the merchant was tired, so he suggested that he first have lunch and then relax in a hot bath. Raphael wondered if Noct was a new master of these lands. He introduced himself and explained that he temporarily manages the estate instead of his missing father and brother. The merchant greeted the young lord as a legitimate heir. Noct was amazed. He had never been officially treated. Raphael said that he knew his father for a long time. They did a lot of things together, and even now he listens to his advice in trade. Noct noted that Raphael smells pleasantly with mint. The merchant apologized to talking about himself. Then he suggested going to the case and asked what they wanted to buy. Noct thought that with such an elegant man, it is a pleasure to deal with. Raphael explained that you can ask anything for everyone, there will be a perfect thing. Nocta was alert. Does it really fit into one suitcase? And suddenly the pillows he seeks is not there. But Joseph did not waste his time and immediately asked about glasses. Raphael's assistant solemnly hit the drum, and the merchant with a pathos pulled out a wonderful napkin. Mayer said she wanted a scent with a chamomile, and Raphael, without hesitation, got exactly one of the suitcases. Noct asked for a pillow with memory because the mucous membrane was too uncomfortable. He already thought that such a product would not be found in Raphael. But he again asked the assistant to perform the drum fraction. And with a solemnity, he exclaimed. Raphael reported with the solemnity, he has exactly the pillow he is looking for a young gentleman. Noct could not believe the dream really came true. He was fond of the merchant's skill. Raphael quickly calculated the cost of orders. Altogether cost 200 rubles. Nocta with sadness he listed his coins, and acknowledged that he did not have so much. Raphael said honestly, you need to choose either a pillow or a flavoring with a napkin. After a brief fight with yourself, Noct made a complicated but noble choice. He decided to buy things for his subjects, giving up his personal dream. That night Noct could not close his eyes, he only thought of that perfect pillow. He finally decided to go to Raphael in a tent, but the merchant said it was enough to call him, there was no need to walk. Noct was justified. They say, everything happened by accident, just passing by. Then the young gentleman offered the merchant exchange, fresh vegetables and beds of the estate for rent, for only 3,000 rubles. But Raphael refused. He said he used to spend the night without luxury. Nocta was disappointed. The trick did not work. He tried again. He suggested using a new bath, which he recently created, and only for 3,000 rubles, or in exchange for a pillow. Raphael asked a little sad, whether Noct really believed that his fate was to sell baths. The young owner thought about the merchant's words and replied, perhaps this bath is the will of heaven. Hearing this, Raphael calmly said, in this case, he no longer plans to visit this estate. The merchant of the merchant asked to extinguish the light and served a cigarette. It is too late, time to rest. Raphael's farewell refused to swim. Nocta was upset. I didn't understand why everything fell and why Raphael no longer wanted to come. And although the mint aroma was still pleasant in the air, suddenly Nocta thought, how did this smell go from the monster? And then he understood. Raphael was always wary because he knew that in the bath he would be defenseless. Looking around, Noct saw only a small snail. When the merchant learned the mayor and Joseph, they were upset. Noct explained, it seems that Raphael changed his mind, seeing the monsters in the fields, and yet there is no longer anyone to trade. The young gentleman said bitterly, their lands are extremely dangerous, even there is no fence, therefore no one will come here, no one will come to trade on these lands. Nocta apologized to Joseph and Mayer for making priorities wrong and building a bath instead of something really important. Joseph agreed it will be bad if Raphael no longer visits. He is a key trading partner, and without it, land development will simply stop. And Noct realized without trade he will never be able to buy a dreamy pillow. Therefore, the young owner solemnly promised, they will definitely build a real fence so that Raphael returns. Mayer doubted, will 3 people be able to do this? Noct replied to trust, he had the perfect plan. Joseph activated the skill of muscle strengthening and easily lifted huge beams, starting to wear them like feathers. Nocta looked with delight in his Titan, who could now pull the entire hospitals on himself. It was possible to reduce 10 meters of fence per hour, but unfortunately, time and materials were missing. They did not have time by morning. Although the plan at first seemed perfect, the reality was rigid. Mayor asked if she was helping Joseph. Joseph confessed with a smile, "After such work, the bath is the best reward." And Noct thought about the words of the servant, and the mayor could not understand, why is the young gentleman so naive? Then Noct turned to Joseph and said, he has an idea that will change everything. Meanwhile in the tent, the merchant Raphael asked his assistant Pico to wake up. It was time to go. Pico greeted, gathered his sticks for food, and promised to collect things quickly. Fortunately, Raphael recalled how good did Mr. Rutherford do for him, and decided to help his son. But when he came out of the tent, he saw the estate in a terrible state. Everything was worse than expected, and he could not understand why he built a young Noct instead of defense, a bath. This young man seems to just not be able to withstand the burden of the ruler. Without even elementary fence, these lands are difficult to call possession. Raphael apologized to Pico for bringing him to such a dangerous place, and promised to do so no longer. But when he came out of the tent, I thought he was still sleeping. Before him was a huge, powerful wall which was not yet yesterday. He touched, she was real, reliable. The mayor, meanwhile, woke up the nail nook and reported that Mr. Raphael had already arrived. The amazed merchant asked in surprise, what happened here? Where did such a powerful wall come from? Noct explained that he simply combined his skill with the elements of the earth, and they were a little fortunate to have time to complete the construction before dawn. Pico with enthusiasm noted that such ability is incredibly convenient, but Raphael remained skeptical. Everything is not as easy as it seems, because the cost of strength should be enormous. Such work cannot be done so quickly without great return. So he asked why Noct just did not postpone this difficult case until tomorrow. Noct replied tomorrow may be too late, and thanked the merchant. It was thanks to him that he rethink his priorities. The settlement was really too dangerous, but this does not mean that it cannot be protected. And then Raphael said, it seems that Nocta finally understood the true essence of his mission. The young master smiled and invited the merchant to look at something. He asked everyone to get in the circle and put his hands. Then he activated the skill of enlargement. He explained that he would use muzzle as an elevator. Raphael was stunned. He did not expect such a surprise. Nocta showed that everyone will now go up to an open bath, located just on the wall. And when they were from above, Raphael saw a gorgeous open-air bath. Nocta recalled that the merchant never managed to wash last time, and now he can do it in safe and comfortable. Nocta confessed that he really wants to get that beautiful pillow, and on behalf of everyone, Raphael asks again to visit the estate. Raphael replied that every merchant should have the same important quality, the ability to determine true value. Noct thought that it was the cost of the goods, but Raphael explained. Anyone can determine the cash price, but it is more important to see the value is much deeper. And he confessed, at first he thought only about the security of the estate, but it was struck that the young gentleman cares not only for protection, but also about how to give others joy, even in the most difficult times. Looking at the face of those who served Noctu, Raphael immediately realized, this young man has true value as a master. So the merchant announced, now he has no thought to break the relationship with such a wonderful person. He promised next time he will come and will bring many new products, and Noct replied, by that time he will create the safest dream park, where it will be possible to rest as much as the soul desires. Raphael was delighted. But first of all, he wants to finally take a wonderful bath, and Noct was sincerely delighted that. Noct was glad to please the merchant. Now the trade had to get better, and the future looked a little brighter. Raphael was relaxed in warm water, enjoying pleasant warmth, and sincerely thanked Noct for the opportunity to relax. In response, the young gentleman urged everyone not to be ashamed. It is not a public swimming pool, but their home. But Joseph recalled that even at home should be more restrained, especially in front of guests and girls. Pico asked the merchant why this young man was so strange. Raphael agreed in confusion. Noct is not at all like his serious father, but that is why he is much more interesting as a person. The merchant was really interesting how this new master will equip his possessions and what he would do. It has passed exactly a month from the beginning of the restructuring. Thanks to the joint work with the mayor, Nocta managed to resolve the food crisis. Using the magic of the earth and his skill, he again built the walls and was able to protect the estate. So Raphael promised, trade with them will continue. And Noct was already thinking about the next step, the replenishment of human resources, the main weakness of their settlement. Without people, development was impossible, and the young master was aware of it very well. Mayor reported that Raphael was approaching in the distance, and his mood is just wonderful, and not for nothing, new migrants came with him. Noct asked the merchant for help. To do this, he applied his skill and increased gems, giving Raphael some of the profit as compensation. The merchant gladly agreed. Noct was in the seventh heaven, now their revival can be considered complete, and maybe he will soon be able to sleep again, how much he wants. He gladly met Raphael and asked his affairs. He reported that he had brought 4 migrants, and, as always, asked Pico to declare it with a blow to the drum. Noct was surprised. Did he decide to transport displaced persons as a gift? In fact, the merchant pulled a special souvenir from the capital from the cart and gave it a knock. New settlers began to emerge from the wild bushes. And Noct saw in surprise these were real animals. Raphael hastened to reassure, all is well, these are not former slaves. But Noct noted that regardless of the past, these animals still live with prejudice. Their eyes are full of amount, they can see that they have experienced a lot. He warmly greeted the new residents and asked their names. The older woman called herself Olivia, and a small, sleepy girl barely said, "Cook." Noct was welcomed that he is the owner of the estate, and I am glad to get acquainted with them. But one of the displaced persons skeptically said, Noct is too young and small to be a real feudal lord, and 2 more supported him. Hearing how they talk, Noct decided that they were children, and called for them to go down quickly from the cart because the height was dangerous. The migrants immediately jumped down, and Noct realized that he was not children, but real adults. They proudly said they had been 121. The courtyards introduced themselves. The guy was called a Horn and the girl Galma. But as soon as they landed, the land under them shuddered and asked a little, which was a lot of surprise. Galma was angry, explaining that they had a normal weight and a failure arose due to 2 heavy weapons. Joseph quickly reminded the gentleman about courtesy. He immediately apologized, and the girl added that these were their tools so heavy. Raphael noted that many people in the capital want to move to their estate, and this family of Duders, outstanding carpenters, which built the Tower of Light in the capital. Noct was interested in their abilities because the tower was a real miracle, but he could not understand why such masters came here. Jalma, having reassured the noisy brother a little, explained that they just wanted to see the world outside the capital. And that is why they decided to leave the past behind and go on a trip. The young gentleman has not yet understood the true cause of their visit, but saw one thing: with such masters the village would be able to come to life again. Noct remembered how he saw that famous tower, majestic, incredible. The yards also assured that not only large structures but also small masterpieces can be built, because every work is an act of art. And they do this art with joy. The young owner could not but admire their giant tools. These babies clearly had weakness to great things. The Horn reported that his sister was perusing the tower and offered to look at the model she was built. Noct was amazed. The design looked perfect. He noticed how happily shone Jilma and decided it was a good sign for future cooperation. The young gentleman confessed that he had never seen anything so majestic before, but suddenly he noticed how Jalma's face changed. He did not understand what caused it. He talked about the model again, and Jalma asked to no longer lift this topic. The guy promised right away there will be no longer. After that, Noct thanked the new residents for his chosen estate. He promised a 3-month supply of food, housing, fields for work, and 5 free tickets to open bath. Olivia asked what it was in mind by food stocks. In response, he demonstrated his ability to increase, but so far, unfortunately, it was only vegetables. It was at this point that he noticed that the Luminaire doll suddenly animated his eyes and was surprised that he had caused it. The girl rose forward, and Noct tried to understand that she thought, and was stunned by her force. It turned out to be surprisingly strong, torn the vegetable from the ground almost effortlessly, which was very surprised by the audience. Koklua was enthusiastically asked for a young gentleman whether he could multiply such vegetables. Olivia strictly asked her daughter to behave more modestly, because asking something from the owner directly in the face is extremely impolite. But Noct just smiled and said that it was not a problem and easily doubled the vegetable. The girl's joy was sincere, and the gentleman was sincerely glad that she could have been able to entertain her. Koklua lively began to taste the gift and froze with pleasure. The taste was really amazing. Suddenly she cheerfully called Nocta Tatis. Olivia apologized for her daughter's behavior, explaining that she just loves vegetables, and Noct mentally noted how this girl reminds him of a little chanterelle. Olivia has sincerely admitted that it is extremely happy to have such a good master, a true blessing. She asked how they could thank for his generosity. Noct replied that there is one main rule in his lands: only the one who really wants to do it has to work. If they like vegetables, let them grow them with pleasure. Koklua exclaimed that it is sure to grow vegetables herself. The young gentleman thanked her and said that she had high hopes for her enthusiasm. Meanwhile, the Devori returned to his sister. What do they do now? Jaelma said without thought that she would take care of her sides in person. This was a lot of nocturnal. He confessed that he expected from the yards of assistance in the reconstruction of the settlement. Jaelma reminded him of his words, only the one who wants. Noct realized that in this case it would remain unprofitable, but he did not want to press, so he decided to act thinner. He began to talk about how lightly you can neglect such a rare talent. After all, they have to want to create, not to mock. But Jaelma cut off him. They say, enough persuases. If he is a master, he must be responsible for his words. This severely affected the knock. Little Mug was indignant and stated that it was not necessary to cap from a young lord. However, Jaelma was strictly recalled, children should not interfere with adults. But the girl did not retreat. If they are such adults, then they have to work for a common good. Jaelma replied that for the animal, it was a good argument, and Kuklua struck in response. She called it lazy, inactive, and real pest. The girl strictly stated, those who only accept gifts and give nothing in return, dead with soul, empty creatures without benefit for others. Olivia immediately intervened, calling her daughter to restraint, but Kuklua stubbornly answered, she cannot remain silent when they humiliate the young owner. She is tired of empty excuses, everything is gained by her own efforts. The mother tried to reassure the girl, and her warm words were eventually acting. Jaelma sighed and agreed to work like everyone else. Nocta praised Kuklua for her eloquence. He has not heard such a convincing determination. The young gentleman thanked the yards for consent and explained that he had one special request for them. Jaelma jokingly suggested that he wanted them to build his home. Nocta denied it was another. He asked them to look at his father's office because there was a crack in the wall. If you do not strengthen it, the destruction can increase. Jaelma was surprised. Would she still have to work on an empty stomach? However, she promised to check, and her brother sent rest. The panic ordered to go out, not to interfere. Looking at the office, Noct felt a familiar pain. He mentally saw the relatives who were no longer. And the idea that the master of the tower of the capital will repair this house filled the heart with warmth. After all, this place retains all the most valuable family memories. After a short walk, Noct decided to return to the office. But he heard a strange roar. He asked in surprise if there is not much noise for the usual repair of crack. But what he saw inside was stunning. The gentleman could not believe that it was possible. Jaelma stood on the wreckage, and she mashed that everything went wrong as she planned. Nocta could not stand. The heart was squeezed at the sight of the destroyed office. He asked confusedly what, in general, happened here. Jaelma indifferently answered that she did nothing. The wall fell. But for Nocta, this office was not just a room. From childhood, he was stretched here. The father always glad his visits, allowing you to jump on a soft chair. For Nocta, this place was the most comfortable in the house. The older brother Weishart was constantly indignant, reminding that it was his future place. And then the father said, when you grow up, you should always help each other. In this office, they spent so many happy hours, and even now, the memories of it warmed the soul of Nocta, like a flame on a cold night. Noct could not believe what had happened to his father's office. The heart was squeezing. Jillery tried to explain that it was a coincidence, that the hand trembled, and she simply did not calculate strength. Raphael Merchant came to the noise and was frozen, seeing the effects of destruction. He said that hunters were already arrived in the settlement, who were ready to stay provided that they have a roof over their heads. And if they were able to attract these hunters, the meat would be enough for everyone. Noct wondered what it means to be a real feudal lord. He realized, no matter who you were before, the main thing is not to turn away from your people, to know their weaknesses and to appreciate the strengths. After searching, the young gentleman finally found Jael and asked if he could join her. She answered sharply, did he come to reproach? But Noct explained everyone here makes mistakes, even he. He asked if her hand was just shuddered. Gaelna replied that he was not so naive to believe in it. And she confessed she can't do anything properly, it depresses it. Even with a hammer does not cope, it cannot control power. And for the yards, the top of life is to create something grand. Therefore, she fled the house, because she felt that she was not meeting the expectations. Everything she really knows is to create beautiful layouts, and only in this all her skill. For Nocta, it was a surprise. He did not even know the such side of Jaelna. He was struck by her sand layout, and he jokingly asked if he could make the bridge a little shake, it would look cool. The girl explained that the layout of sand, but completely reproduces the future structure. Nocta wondered, do she not like large structures like other yards? But Jaina was not like that, she liked to create small forms. It is visible in the sand castle, small but beautiful. She confessed that being not like everyone was not ashamed. Noct said he wanted to create a place where everyone will only do what they really like. For example, he wants to sleep for days without stopping. Galna was surprised to be such a confession. Nocta boasted with a smile. He can fall asleep in 3 seconds. Here is his true talent. She replied that Lord is a very strange skill, and even her layouts look decent against this background. Galna proudly showed the layout of the house, made with incredible detail. Every detail was tried to the smallest detail. Noct was interested in the beauty of the model, which even opened windows and doors. Galna noted that she always paid attention to the little things. He wondered how to use her talent in practice, even without combat abilities. Then he decided to surprise the girl and activated the skill of increasing objects. Galna was stunned. Her tiny layout turned into a full large house, and Noct became fascinated by the result. The young gentleman explained that thanks to his skills, even layouts can now become real homes. Galna was glad because her talent was finally recognized. He stressed that a new house is its merit, and the girl felt for the first time that she was capable of something big. Cucula exclaimed that she wanted to live in this house. Olivia also supported this idea with delight. The interior design of the house struck everyone. Everything looked like a work of art. Galna felt that she could really create here. And Noct, as always, first began to look for a bed to lie down. Galna told her brother that they were not mistaken by choosing these lands. A few days passed, and the young gentleman decided to diversify the weekdays. He went hunting. Catching the prey, he thought he had caught the rabbit. But at the last moment, he was flashed. Lutz and Greg were asked what he was doing. Noct acknowledged that the hunter from him was not too skilled and instructed the case to professionals. Lutz immediately activated vision and then applied the skill of accurate shot. Greg managed to impress 2 birds with 1 shot, a spectacular and accurate work. Lutz said that not everything turned out perfect, but the main thing, the result. Greg assured her that everything went on plan. Nocta praised both, noting that this is how real hunters should act. Suddenly, Greg noticed the beehive and used a fireball to neutralize angry insects. At this time, Lutz noticed the deer quite close and prepared for the next shot. Noct acknowledged their advantage in field affairs and said that he was completely resting on them. Thanks to his possession now looked cozy and homey, with wonderful new buildings. 2 new inhabitants hunting masters, the Elfian Lutz with the exact eye and the experienced adventurer Greg, who has exceptional survival skills, joined the settlement. After hunting, they swayed with prey, showing fresh meat that they had to bring for dinner. Everyone rejoiced, and Noct glowed with happiness. He dreamed of meat for a month and a half, because the vegetables were already bored for nausea. Lutz and Greg have announced that they were returning home to cook something juicy and delicious from this meat. Noct was a little upset because he went out to hunt in the hope that the meat would be cooked in nature, right away. Therefore, he suggested having an open-air dinner, admiring the scenery. Lutz supported the idea, and Greg went to call others. While everyone was going, Noct felt happy. Everyone was busy, and all together formed a warm, friendly family. The smell of fried meat was spreading around, and Noct thought that here it was true happiness, the joy of simple things. Mare was tired of waiting and announced that the meat had already reached the state of medium rare, so it's time to taste. But Noct asked a little more time. He activated the skill of increasing and turning a piece of meat into a giant. The frustrated Joseph confessed that he was ready to follow his master, though. Everyone was delighted with the amount of appetizing meat. Joseph specifically cut the largest piece for his favorite owner. Noct gave him a souvenir and called the best butterfly in the world. With a hungry glitter in his eyes, Nocta looked at the dish and thought he finally waited for this moment. But suddenly a hot piece of meat slipped out of his hands. Noct was not lost. He rushed after the meat that rolled. Mare only had time to exclaim that it was not necessary to do it, but Noct was blinded by the goal and did not notice how he broke out of the break. And even at that moment he thought, if it is the end, then he does not regret anything. But the fall was strange. He did not feel the pain that it seemed absolutely incredible. At first he decided that he had fallen into a new gorge and quickly realized this place was more like a real paradise. And the gigantic girl he was landing on was only complaining about her a little rinse. Nocta was shocked by the appearance of a giant girl. He could not imagine who she was and where he came from in this gorge. Only one thought was spinning in his head about hot fried meat for which he broke out of the break, but landing on the giant saved his life. Emre screamed from above, trying to find out if everything was fine with the young owner. Others saw it and shouted it too. There was a real giant under the rock. The giant girl noticed the meat, exclaimed that it was exactly what she lacked, and immediately grabbed a piece. Nocta watched with horror how his dream disappeared in her mouth. Enjoying the taste, the giant wanted yet, but Noct decided not to allow her to pick up all the lunch because others will remain hungry. He used his ability and became a giant himself. He compared her in height. The girl was surprised and compared him with a bear, and Noct asked her not to touch the meat. He explained that every inhabitant should enjoy food, not just her as justice. The giant sincerely apologized. She did not know that the meat is alien. She was just hungry and did not stand before the aroma. Her face was smart, and Noct decided to remedy the situation. He again applied the force of increase and turned the residue of meat into a huge piece. Everyone was enthusiastically applauded. The actions of the young owner were smart and generous. The lunch continued. Now everyone had enough meat, and everyone enjoyed a hearty meal. The giant paid attention to the sweet sauce. Mare explained that it was a fruit seasoning for meat. The girl was delighted and asked for more. Nocta was surprised. Did she never tasted meat? She replied that she ate everything in a row: fruits, animals, and even a monster. Noct was stunned that she even ate monsters. Raphael's merchant explained that he was a girl of giants. Their name speaks for themselves: huge, bold, real titans. Noct realized that if she destroyed the monsters in these lands, then, albeit unconsciously, but protected his possession. The giant ate joyfully and asked for Nook to increase food. He is not sorry, on the contrary. He was glad, looking at her satisfied face. Lunch ended under the overall laughter and warmth. All were full, happy, and united as ever. And Noct was convinced that even the most unexpected meetings can bring something well when approaching them with good. Everyone was full and satisfied, but only the young master felt incredible fatigue. Mare noted that he looks exhausted. Noct acknowledged that he was truly overwhelmed. Apparently, he used his ability too often. In the end, he announced that it was time to return home and said goodbye to a giant girl named Burden. But she was upset, seeing how a fun company leaves it alone. She confessed that she was terribly tired of being alone and asked to go with them. Noct was surprised by such a request and asked if she really wanted to live in his territory. The guy realized that he would not be able to take care of such a big girl. He recalled that her family could worry about disappearance, but Burdina replied that her family is now in hospital. Suddenly she was angry and screamed that she did not want to stay alone and would go with them despite everything. The frightened Noct asked her to calm down immediately and promised to resolve the situation. He explained that he did not mind in the village, but he added that because of its size, it will create a lot of difficulties. He may try to reduce it a little with magic. Asked not to resist, Noct used the ability, and everything succeeded. Burdina became the usual size. In the new body, the girl was delighted, enthusiastically looked at the settlement and the level of comfort. Noct said that all this was the merit of the great family. Stroke, she confessed, to be little cool. Now you can go into any home without problems. Returning home after the barbecue, Noct began to think about whether he did the right thing. He was worried as the Burdina family reacts. But the guy noticed an interesting thing. Unlike Mucus, during the transformation of Burdina, there was no resistance, perhaps because she wanted it herself. So he decided that if necessary, he would be able to regain her former appearance without any problems. And then he confessed that he was too tired and decided to go to bed. But Burdina did not quench. She demanded a tour right now. Noct firmly replied that it would show her everything only in the morning. Meanwhile, Mare advised Burdini to wash, and Olivia to dress in something cleaner, but I didn't understand what it was about and in surprise asked, "What is a bath?" At night, Noct woke up with a feeling of pleasant softness at hand. It seemed to him that it was a new gorgeous pillow, which he never knew about, but when he opened his eyes, he saw that Burden was lying next to him. Burdina carelessly greeted the young master, as if nothing unusual. He was confused, not understanding how she was in his bed, and she is satisfied, smiling. Mare brought a basket of fresh fruits that have just been harvested from the garden. The nozzle of Nocta stood in a stupor, not knowing how to comment on such a senseless situation. The angry Mare demanded explanations for what she saw, but Burdina, seeing the plums, rejoiced and instantly pulled Nocta from the room. From the door came the outraged cries of Mare, which tried to remind Burdini of clothes, but the girl insisted it was time for the excursion that Noct promised yesterday. On the street, they were met by Olivia and Kuklua, warmly greeting the young owner. Nocta showed Burdini a garden, where a small doll grew different vegetables. Kuklua proudly pointed to a huge root, which grew due to her care. Burdina first saw something like that, and asked what it was for root and why it was white. Noct explained that it was not a tree, but a regular vegetable. He was surprised that giants knew nothing about vegetables. He said that in moderation they are useful and delicious. Kuklua supported him and suggested that Burdini try. After tasting, Birdna enthusiastically noted the sweet taste and asked what the fruit was. Kuklua corrected, "It is not a fruit, but a vegetable dakin." Birdna was glad to meet such a flavor. Noct praised the girl for their efforts. Kuklua happily replied that she dreamed of growing vegetables with love. Then he wondered if Birdini really liked dakin because she ate it instantly. But she admitted that the vegetable did not impress, but she likes to eat with others. Kuklua also praised the taste, eating her piece. Birdna added that the real pleasure of food is when you do not eat alone. The young man remembered how hungry and shocked she looked during their meeting, and she noticed that she knew nothing about the kitchen or cooking. He became sad because, it seems, the girl was alone all this time. He gently reminded that her family is probably worried. But he decided not to develop this topic in order not to spoil the mood. Kuklua sighed, saying that she was different in her life, and invited Burden to taste her pumpkin. Suddenly, the moon was interrupted by their peaceful conversation. Everyone was straining. Noct asked what it was. A creepy howl. It belonged to the silver wolf, the beast with blood-red eyes and dazzling silver wool. Such creatures are incredibly dangerous and rare. But none of them had to appear so close to his possessions. The young man remembered that right now hunters Luz and Greg are outside the settlement. The cubula was frightened to tears. Birdna hurried to reassure her, gently hugging and assuring that everything would be fine. Birdna sharply turned to the young owner, insisting that they needed to go immediately. The surprised Noct asked where they were going so hurry. She explained that she was clearly hearing the smell of Greg and Luz and sure someone attacked them. The feeling of anxiety left her for a moment. Indeed, the Greg and the Luz tried to find a way to get out of the difficult situation in which they got into. They had neither a clear plan nor an escape opportunity, just hopeless. The angry Greg shouted that no one could predict the appearance of the silver moon. They made fatal carelessness and now left or distract the wolves or break back to Noct. Birdna screamed that she found them, and the horror did not let her down. The wolves really attacked. Seeing the attack, Noct immediately applied the ability to reduce, hoping to weaken the wolves. But it was surprised, magic did not work. Wolves seemed to have protection against charm. Luz and Greg fought desperately, but the forces were uneven. There were too many enemies. Birdna exclaimed that she was already running for help and rushed forward. In a moment, Nocta noticed how much Birdna became. It broke through the crowd of wolves with incredible ease. The frightened hunters asked if everything was fine with him. He replied that he was fine with him and that now they are not alone. The help came. Birdna had fun that now, when she is smaller, it was much easier to move. Nocta has sincerely advice for her. The owner asked Birdinwell to teach these abominable wolves so that they would never encroach on his land again. But with a smile she answered that she would not leave any without punishment. Noct shouted that it was time to complete this case, quickly and without mercy. Birdna stressed with rage that these insidious wolves were constantly following her, and now she would end it. The moment of reckoning came. She stopped, clenched his fists, and was preparing for the final blow. And suddenly, a flock of wolves howled with fear. Frightened, they turned around in a panic and rushed as if they saw a real nightmare. Noct did not believe their eyes. The wolves simply fled, covered with fear. It was almost incredible. Birdna gladly exclaimed that she fulfilled the task of the owner, and now everything is under control. Nocta praised her, saying that he was waiting for such a student. She glowed with pride. Les asked where the silver month could come from. Greg suggested that he could be expelled by orcs. Noct agreed something happened in the forest, and until they find out what exactly, they will not sleep peacefully. The words of the young master made everyone think. They began to look for a way to understand the situation. But Noct added that it was thanks to Birdini that everything was done today, so he will still allow himself to relax. However, Birdna stopped him. She knew the place where the delicious fruit grows and wanted to share it. She confessed that she scared the residents of the village and wanted to treat them. Noct was surprised why she suddenly remembered the fruit. Arriving in the woods, he noted that her cabin has a rather wild look, as if she had grown up among the trees. Birdna explained that the fruit grows right in the garden. It will quickly bring it. Everyone was surprised by the size of the furniture in the house. It was obvious that guests would not be very convenient. However, the chairs were still there. 3. Noctis winked the elf, hinting that it is not easy. Birdna apologized for a delay and bare the fruit. They looked like a large bunch of grapes. Noct asked what they were called. The girl replied that she didn't know, he just calls them delicious. Even the vapor saw such for the first time. Trying, Noct noted a slight sweetness. Birdna said that once the taste was much brighter, it was interested in it. He decided to experiment and applied the ability to reduce on berries. Birdna was immediately happy. Now they tasted as before. Noct explained that large fruits have less sweets concentrate, so the reduction changes the taste. He confessed that he had never eaten anything like that, and he decided that such berries could come out a wonderful wine. His estate has the necessary equipment. And of course, Cucula will gladly join a new experiment. Berdina thanked the young owner. They did not spend much time together, but it was the best day in her life. Berdina explained that these wolves always followed her, but never came so close. Even now, when she came to them, they just fled. Someone may not be afraid of these lands because it has become small. Something clearly changed in the forest. So she decided to stay here and protect these territories. Noct returned her former size, and Berdina laughed. The guy now seemed quite tiny, but he immediately stated that it was too much. In exchange for the burden's forgiveness, she asked to take care of all the inhabitants of the estate. Noct thought that if she made such a choice, it would probably be better. However, he noticed that Berdina was too upset, and he said that he should not worry, should not be so sad. She did not understand why they did not go and asked what had happened. Noct explained that if she does not return with everyone, the Cushula would be very upset. Berdina reminded that her presence was dangerous. Next time, it may not have time to protect them. Nocta promised that if there was a danger, he would protect everyone himself, because it is his duty as the landowner. He asked her not to worry and offered to return home together. Berdina burst into tears, but they were tears of happiness. She sincerely thanked Nocta for trust. Suddenly, she remembered the souvenirs and grabbed a whole curl of strange berries to take with her. Noct immediately reduced them to make it easier. Everyone was ready for the road. He suggested that the fruits be named, because it is inconvenient when the food is named. And since Berdina found them, then invent her name, the girl thought, and suddenly she shouted loudly. Noctic evaluated the idea. The name formed from the syllables of his name. Berdina was glad that she would remain part of all. Marin and Noct decided to create a real tree, combining their ability of cellular activation and strengthening of objects. The mayor was delighted with the result and admitted that such skills could be achieved, but the guy had only dreamed of rest. Mayor sincerely said that they with Noctis, the perfect couple. Nocta is embarrassed and jokingly added that it is probably necessary to check compatibility with others. At this point, Joseph called his laptop excitedly and reported that it has a very important news. The faithful Bogretsky explained that the tax inspector came to the estate. Noct was surprised because I did not understand how to treat such a person. Mayor suggested that the inspector had come on taxes. Noct agreed. Even his father did not like such visits. Joseph reminded that landowners are obliged to pay some of the profits. He added that the tax service has the right to determine the amount of tax, and even after the invasion of orcs, it is impossible to refuse payment. The tax is set by the state, but Noct asked Joseph and Mayor not to worry, and he stated that he was not going to pay a penny for his land and tried to manage it in person. Solemnly congratulating the tax inspector, Noct wondered if she was tired after a long journey and then politely introduced himself as a manager. He immediately asked to release the estate from the tax this year because they are still recovering after the orc attack. But the inspector asked why the owner of these lands was so humiliating with the floor. Has he already lost his dignity? Noct explained that for the sake of peace and safety of his people, he is ready for any sacrifice even to give in pride. Then he paid attention to the dirty shoes of the inspector and suggested that he put it in order at the meeting. The inspector confessed that she really heard about the attack and would like to know more details about this incident. Noct briefly recount the events and the difficulties they experienced trying to restore the settlement. The tax inspector recognized the residents made tremendous efforts. But something left unclear to her, and she decided to clarify. Where did such giant walls around the estate come from here? When asked where the walls came from, Noct explained they were erected by all residents together. The inspector was surprised. It turns out that the recovery is successful. The young man agreed, although he added, they are not yet ready for exports, they only provide himself. However, in the future, he plans to supply unique goods from these lands. He proposed to taste the famous Nudier fruit. The girl confessed that she saw something like this for the first time, but the mysterious look of the berries was interested in her. She baked carefully. A sweet, juicy taste with a soft aftertaste was pleasantly surprised. The inspector felt that the fruit even relieved fatigue and headache. But in a moment, she again gained a strict posture and continued to listen. Noct explained that he plans to grow these fruits, make them sweets and even alcohol. The idea of its own production stunned the inspector, thinking. She said that given the difficult situation, she was ready to exempt the estate from taxes. But saying goodbye, she warned, it is impossible for everything to be held only one. If one support falls, everything will collapse. Noct acknowledged she hit the heart. If the state rests on one person, it is doomed to collapse. Mayor confessed that this girl is anxious, but Noct disagreed, she is good, just too strict. He acknowledged that it was not necessary to rely only on his own strength. If something happens to him, others should be determined and the ability to handle on their own. And although the residents have become more, it is not a reason to lose vigilance. The estate must live regardless of it. Joseph proudly said that Noct was rapidly growing up and became wise. Now he reminds his father. Noct joked that he would then be able to sleep as much as you want, knowing that everything is under control. And when asked what he looks like his father, Joseph just smiled, don't worry. After canceling the ban on hunting and starting your own production, the settlement was able to provide stable food, clothing, and housing. This contributed to the increase in the number of inhabitants. The lands belonging to the Noctis have also expanded, and the young man himself with pleasure watched the mayor working hard. Everything went in turn, and Noct, satisfied, again allowed himself to be lazy and sleep plenty. Only Joseph was outraged. The gentleman lies again after lunch. The number of inhabitants is increasing, and the estate owner shows a bad example. To which Noct denied he worked hard before lunch. Together with the mayor, they brought out a new sweet variety of seeds, and now at the pollination stage create the perfect onion and tomatoes, even without his ability. Joseph listened to the excuse of a young gentleman, but asked strictly not to lie to him. The upset Noct complained to Olivia that Joseph did not believe him at all, and it is too cruel. The girl sincerely confessed that she was offensive for her. She does not share Joseph's thoughts. Little Kukua also rushed to comfort the master, assuring that he was a good person. Olivia tried a new variety of onions and admitted, it is surprisingly sweet and delicious. Noct was delighted with such a response. However, he sighed that Joseph did not see this result. Olivia praised his effort and assured that everything would be fine. In the next moment, she suddenly apologized to a doll and with tenderness stroked her laptop on her head. Nocta said nothing, restrained emotions, and then introduced a new kind of tomato. Sophia from Kukua was amazed. The usual plant had a completely different look. Nocta jokingly said that he had a lot of food. Smiling, Olivia replied that if a young gentleman's suddenly hungry, she already knows how to fix it. He looked at her gladly and said he would be glad to have lunch with everyone. Then he asked why they were cooking in the open. Olivia explained that under the sun it is much more enjoyable. In addition, with the help of a fiery ball, managed to quickly ignite the stove and speed up cooking. Everything went smoothly, and the young gentleman was quietly waiting for home food. The stomach was already reminiscent of itself, and the smell of dishes only ignited appetite. So Noct decided to lie side by side so as not to interfere with cooks. Sleep under the aroma of delicious food seemed a wonderful plan. In addition, it will be possible to eat immediately after awakening, but it was at this moment that someone was rapidly approaching him. It was Burden. She was in a hurry because she felt the smell of Noctis. Behind her came a merchant Raphael with her assistant. Raphael hinted that Noct repeated the same thing again. But the young man strictly reminded that it should remain their secret. The dwarves, hungry and loud. Navier was genuinely rejoiced in the noisy company and prepared Napoleon with sweet onions and tomatoes. Homemade food entertained everyone. A real culinary holiday unfolded in the open sky. The doctor appreciated a new dish and praised Olivia for talent and ingenuity. Even the demanding Joseph acknowledged that such a taste of simple vegetables is a real miracle. Olivia was glad that she could surprise him. She explained that this vegetable variety was created by a young gentleman, and she only used it in the kitchen. In addition, it is grown without the use of Noctis magical skills, so now everyone will be able to grow such vegetables themselves. Joseph was surprised to realize that the young man did not cunning, he really tried to do something useful. The old butter praised new varieties and apologized to Noctis for the morning words. But Noct only lifted his eyebrows in surprise. He did not remember what happened in the morning. Olivia noticed how she liked such a hollow atmosphere when everyone enjoying simple joys together. Noctis said with sadness how much more people lived here during his father. Olivia assured that she saw a lot of different, and this place is a real treasure. It was here that Kukua stopped afraid. Everything has changed. They found a place where they could breathe freely, feel safe, and live without fear. Sylvia shared that she was happy to be here, and on behalf of all the inhabitants, thanked the young gentleman for his care and effort. But Noct thought that in reality, it should thank these people for staying nearby. He promised himself to pray for the happiness of his people and do everything possible to never repeat the tragedy of destruction of the estate. But suddenly hunters appeared and brought alarming news. They explored the traces of the orcs, and immediately it became clear that the case was serious. It became clear in the footsteps there was intelligence. The orcs reached the estate but turned back. This could mean that his father and brother, who remained somewhere in the depths of the territory, could not survive. He mentioned a long conversation with Joseph. Then he believed that they were alive, although Joseph did not deny anything. Noct realized that the story is repeating. The orcs are coming again, and now the danger is closer than ever. He realized that a new attack would not be avoided, and this time everything will depend on him. How to decide what to do next when he has never encountered such a threat. And then Noct wondered, what would his father and brother do in his place? Joseph warned that orc intelligence is a sure sign of a future attack. The mayor doubted whether the orcs were able to think so strategically, and the Les's thinkers reported that she found strange children's traces near the Ochent camp. She explained that the orcs are divided into types, and among them there is a general with high intelligence, and above him is the king. Probably the attack is organized by such a general. Brayden noted that the orcs are real monsters. She saw the animals ate with the children, biting raw meat. Nocta thought with horror that these wild beings would not be pursued by anyone. Brayden wondered whether the orcs attacked the estate earlier. Joseph confirmed that the last attack was a real nightmare. Outraged, Burden promised to destroy every orc that dares to approach her owner. Noct tried to reassure an angry giant and asked how she plans to do it. She showed her strength, demonstrating that he could crush enemies in one movement. The Greg was frightened of Nocta and urged her to stop immediately. The hunter explained that the final word only on a young gentleman. The frightened mayor hastened to check the state of Noctis, activating cellular healing. Nocta said everyone should choose, stay or leave. He will not be able to command how his father and brother did. He realized with pain he did not have the power to give orders as once in his family. But despite this, people supported Noctis and asked what the protection plan would be. The mayor confirmed that everyone is waiting for the decision of the young owner and ready to follow him to the end. Noct remembered the words of his father, who ordered him to protect his people, and he decided he would fight to the last. He acknowledged that he would not cope on his own and asked everyone to defend their common house. Only together will they be able to protect families. This call brought together everyone's hearts. All the inhabitants listened to the words of Nocta with faith and decided to unite for the sake of a common purpose. Later, Brayden approached him. At first, he thought she had come to eat again. But she said this time not for the sake of food. She had a different request. She asked her to make her big again. In this form, it will be much stronger. Noct smiled. It would really be great. Such force will be useful for their settlement. Noct asked Birds if she was really ready for such a decision and whether it would fight with everyone, protecting his estate. The girl seriously answered that this is an important mission, and most importantly, that everyone remains alive and intact. She wants to be part of this protection and asks her to return her former power, not for the sake of herself, but for the safety of every resident. The young man sincerely became interested in her determination and noted that she was a true example of kindness and courage. At that time, Noct activated the ability to increase and turned Burden into the giant she had previously been. He instructed her to take care of the defense of the walls and remain as careful as possible. The mayor, inspired by the example, also asked to increase it, but Noct refused. In a large body, she will not be able to manage himself normally because it is an unnatural condition. Meanwhile, Brayden completed all the preparations and thought, would she really save her owner from danger? And suddenly a roar came from the forest. Noct realized that the orcs were already nearby. In a few minutes, the first detachments of fierce orcs ready for battle escaped from the thickets. They appeared a wave behind the wave, igniting panic in the hearts of the defenders of the estate. The most horrifying was that the orc was a giant monster, which overshadowed everyone. Raphael's merchant asked that it was a monster, even he had not seen it. The residents of the village were covered by fear. Everyone shouted that it was General Orkiv on the attack. In the memory of Nocta, the images of his father and brother floated, which only ignited his rage and the thirst for revenge. The sword of the missing brother hung on the chest of the monster, and on the shoulders, the cloak of the father himself. Nocta realized in front of him the king of the orcs. It is not just a beast. Raphael confirmed that it is a truly king, a smart creature under divine protection, and they all underestimated the threat. They thought they were dealing with simple orcs, but now it was clear. They were coming a terrible force that is difficult to stop. The young master confessed that he had already suspected such a development in the soul. And now he became clear, that is why his father and brother never returned. Meanwhile, Raphael's assistant began to count the number of orcs coming. Raphael's assistant rapidly counted more than 500 enemies, while the defenders were only 28. Nocta reassured everyone, no one has to beat, it is enough to destroy the king. If you overthrow the leader, the orcs will lose their morale and retreat themselves. The young man believed that this time the victory would be behind them. And it will be obtained without any loss, because every life is invaluable. While everything was in their favor, the king of the orcs himself came to the threshold, so they won't have to look for him. At the same time, Noct warned that it is not necessary to hope for a light battle. Everyone has to act in harmony and win time. But in the eyes of all the orcs, one blow dislodged the protective fortifications, leaving the Noct shocked and depressed. Raphael exclaimed that the orcs began a breakthrough through a break, heading to the center. Noct was entrusted with Burden's defense, and she assured that she would do her best, but he saw how uneven their chances were. To encourage everyone, the young man reminded the spare plan and ready traps for enemies. The enemies were waiting for sharpened pegs. It will be easier to hold back the advancing. However, the following events were greatly disappointed. Under the leadership of the king of orcs, hostile forces skillfully went through obstacles. Noct realized that the orcs themselves are not hurt, but when they are governed by a strategist, it is a real army. Although their power was terrible, he decided not to run, even if he had to die. Greg shouted what to do now. In response, Jan gave Nocto a small ball, a mysterious object for an emergency. At first, Noct did not understand why she was, but he immediately realized the idea and decided to use the last chance. He got the little layouts created by Jayla and prepared for a decisive step. Joseph did not understand why the young man suddenly kneeled before the enemy, but it was too late to ask something. Noct activated the ability to strengthen, and miniature layouts turned into real defensive structures, standing a wall in front of a hostile offensive. Jane exclaimed that she could create as much as possible, and Noct immediately ordered her to continue. Their plan was still alive. At this time, Mary gathered all the wounded to assist, and begged Nocta to go to a safe place. She shouted that the victory would lose meaning if the young gentleman would die. Noct agreed and stepped back. But the memory of his own helplessness in the past made him stop. Earlier he hid behind the backs of others. Today everything has changed, now his turn to defend. Gathering power, the young man used magic against orcs and exclaimed that the life of ordinary residents is no less important than its own. The mayor grabbed her heart. She did not believe that Noct had rushed. Stretching the sword at the time of the impact, he maintained balance and increased the force of attack at times. Raphael was surprised. The young man spends a minimum of magic to reach the maximum, a true master of his rare skill. Joseph was silently admired. The little helper counted the enemies. There were only 84 orcs left. Nocta, which is winged with the result, exclaimed, "We will handle." But the idea that the main enemy, the king of orcs, did not give him rest. It's not just a thoughtless creature, it's a monster with a true mind and wild power. The mayor tried to warn of danger. But late, Noct did not have time to react. A powerful blow of the king hit him in his stomach. Seeing this, Burden screamed and rushed to the rescue. But the orcs were dreaming around her without letting go. And then the most ominous figure, the king of the orcs, approached her. At the last moment, she substituted herself under a blow to cover the knock. But the forces were too uneven. Even a giant girl could not withstand. And yet, gathering the last forces, Noct activated. In despair, Noct tried to hit the king with orcs with a giant sword, strengthened to the limit. But something went wrong. The young man almost laughed. All this seemed absurd, laughing of fate. As this is possible, the king of the orcs broke the steel blade, simply squeezing it, and immediately after that he hit the knock with a fire stream. The reactor of the creature and her horrible claws crashed into the boy's body. He struck pain. Raphael's merchant couldn't stand. He shouted that the monster was just mocking the young owner. The consciousness of Nocta faded. The pain turned into a darkness, and thoughts were sliding to the edge of death. The body was covered with terrible fatigue. He wanted to just lie down and fall asleep, forget about war, responsibility, fear. He almost believed that he did everything he could, the only thing that regretted, that he could not return his father's cloak. In memory, a baby knight floated at the fire. My father told him before bedtime about the monsters. One of the lessons was about a poisonous plant caecella, which causes hallucinations and eats alive, but becomes safe if you pour it with water. Then the father asked, "What is the greatest weakness of the orcs?" Little Noct replied, "They are afraid of fire. the father approved and said, "It is time to wake up." The young man did not understand what to do, but suddenly an unknown force pulled him out of sleep. Sleeping his eyes, he saw Braden heroically restrain the king of the orcs, not let him get a noctis. The embarrassed mayor exclaimed that he was glad to see him alive and wants to help. The guys thought, how did he think about a dream at that moment? Having collected the remnants of power, he decided rest only after winning. In an instant, he created a fireball. He thanked his father and brother in his thoughts. Their lessons were recalled who he really is. He released a fiery ball and strengthened it with several layers of magic. The flames escaped with the tender and will. He exclaimed loudly, "I am a favorite of the god of fire and the real ruler of the flame." Everyone who saw it was filled with faith. Their young master rose again, strong, burning, unbreakable. The orcs suddenly felt the wild, original horror in front of the flames that rose to the sky. The residents of the settlement again felt hope. Their owner is not just standing, but wins, and the flames continued to grow. And so the king of the orcs turned, and he rushed to flee, covered with fear like a beast. The amazed Raphael exclaimed that he was running into the forest, but something unexpected happened. The sharp objects pierced the monster's legs, and his piercing roar shook everything around, and Braden smiled satisfied. She just returned the debt, for each wound, for every cry. However, the orc did not give up. He gathered the last forces, hiding behind a living shield from his servants. It was his attempt to break the spirit of people, to press the last time, until he remained covered. Joseph could not believe it's a monster too smart for a monster, and Jaelna swore, calling him a real scum. But the young owner was not distracted. The fiery ball in his hands became even larger, even brighter. Then the king of the orcs decided to make noctis, showing all his father's cloak. Inside the young man boiled rage. He knew that it was this creature that took away the most dear. And no doubt his father and brother died from his paws, the heart squeezed in pain. The monster threw his brother's sword, like his last blow, into the shower. The mayor saw a deadly threat and shouted, begging the young man to lower his hands and save. But Noct decided that to quit everything now means to destroy the whole plan. He has no right to retreat. In the last moment, the young man evaded the blade with one hand, and the other held a fireball. He understood it was time to act, without fear, without hesitation. And with all his power, he threw the fiery sphere into the crowd of orcs. In his last second of life, the king of the orcs felt an unbearable heat. The flames of righteous rage covered his flesh. The flames instantly absorbed the body of the orc king, leaving no trace. The inhabitants of the village with delight watched how the threat was literally evaporated by a fiery ball. Their fear disappeared with the enemy. But glory was at the price. The young master barely held on his feet. His body was exhausted, and every muscle was engulfed. The forces left it completely. The legs were cleared, and before fainting, he had time to see Burden rush to him with a frightened look. Gradually, consciousness returned. The darkness was scattered, changing to soft light and muted sounds around. The eyes opened, and the first thing he thought, what happened and how he was without a sensation. Gathering with thoughts, Nog saw a faithful mayor nearby. The girl tried hard to activate the cells of his body, helping him to restore strength. The mayor gladly noticed that the gentleman had come and immediately approached. The owner asked how much time it has passed since he lost consciousness. At the same moment, Joseph appeared and worriedly asked what really happened to the young master. Upon learning that he had slept for 3 days, Nogt was not surprised. He seemed to him something incredible to him. He even joked that he must have become a dream genius. Joseph explained that all this time, Mayer has used her cell recovery technique continuously. The faithful maid noted that she should be cut, but Nogt advised her to relax at first because she spent too much effort for treatment. The mayor refused, they say, feels good, but Noct noticed how she used self-healing. She proudly stated that as a maid of her master, she is just beginning her work. The owner agreed with a smile, but said that then she was guilty of 3 lunch for missing days. However, first rest. The mayor agreed to take a nap because the picture lasted only half an hour. Wanting a blanket, the mayor immediately fell asleep, and Nogt looked at her with gratitude, realizing how much she did for him. Then Joseph wondered where the gentleman plans to go. The young man replied that he wanted to check the condition of the residents and find out one important thing. Cucula was glad to see Nogt and exclaimed that he finally woke up. He replied that he felt better and returned to his senses. He thanked Cuculae doctors for their help. Her cheeks were swollen, and she confessed that she just sincerely wanted him to recover faster. The Louis stated that if Nogt is in order, it was time to arrange a real holiday with good meat. But at the same moment, the earth shuddered as if an earthquake began, and everyone around the tension. But it turned out that it was just a giant burden rushed to Nogt. He applied a reduction technique, frightened to return it to normal size. The young owner apologized to Burden for having left her in uncomfortable clothes for 3 days, but did not have time to agree. Because the girl immediately exclaimed that she was hungry all these days and only dreamed of delicious meat. To reassure her, Nogt quickly got the first or best sweet bulbs. The giant immediately attacked the vegetables and began to chew. At the same time, she muttered an apology for her weakness during the battle with the orcs. But the young man denied. If it were not for Burden, he would have died at the hands of the Orc King. Then he asked where the Jylene is now. Thanks to the support of Jylene, Nogt organized a burial for his father and brother to pay them away. Standing at the graves, he thanked his relatives for their support, which they gave for life, and for help, which was not lost even after death. Carefully decorated the place with things belonging to his brother and father, trying to make him bright and worthy. In his thoughts, his father asked for an apology. He was weak since childhood and was unable to protect his family before or rescue settlements. He remembered that his father had never taken vacations, constantly working for the benefit of the community, even when he was exhausted. And even when his older brother was alone, his father did not allow him to sleep together, not to show weakness. Now Nogt has decided that he should do everything possible for the sake of the family and every resident of the settlement. That's what his father wanted. He realized that in his veins, the blood of a man who was loved and respected. And so he should become a decent heir, the defender and the real master of these lands. In honor of the brilliant victory and successful restoration of the settlement, a large celebration dedicated to Mr. Nogt was arranged. The merchant Raphael was glad that everything ended safely. After all, despite all the difficulties, they managed to overcome the strongest orca. Now the forest was safe. The owner also thanked Raphael, acknowledging that it was a common victory. He gladly lifted the glass and stated that it was time to implement their plan. Raphael solemnly suggested that you open a new store immediately. Jack was surprised by such an unexpected idea and asked why the merchant decided to open a shop in this city. Smiling, Raphael explained that thanks to Nogt's efforts, these lands are now crowded with prospects. There are many opportunities for trade here, and it is ready to develop an organized business in the city right now. The young master thought that he had already coped with his business, but quickly realized the concern of the settlement would not disappear so. New problems have just begun to appear, and it is unlikely that they will be able to disassemble them effortlessly. He still has many decisions and responsibility. So he decided to make every effort so that his father and brother could be proud of him. Surrounded by residents of the city, he made a new idea. The owner stated that it was time to perpetuate the story, the moment of appearance of the first store on his lands. Immediately, a lively discussion began. What kind of store should you create the first? Jaelna suggested to open a tavern, because alcohol is a universal response to all life troubles. She argued her position. The young man acknowledged that it makes sense. Once upon a time, when he had no work, he was drunk and fell asleep with sweet calm. It was the best feeling of carelessness. But Luz did not agree. First, they say, you need to create a farm. It will be possible to catch rare animals and breed them. Meat will make everyone happy. Nogt thought that the Luz was right. A hearty dinner and a strong sleep are also a great perspective. He wondered what was really needed for quality rest. And he decided that it is best to wake up in the morning next to the magic maid and then have a quiet breakfast. With this wild fantasy in his head, he suddenly saw a solution: delicious food, comfort, and maintenance in one place. The owner solemnly announced that they will open a luxurious guest. Joseph was surprised to ask why the gentleman made such an unexpected choice. However, this caused a real dispute. Everyone wanted to realize their own project, and no one was inferior. Unexpectedly, the doll said, at every striking desire of man always stands the invisible hand of God. The words of the little fox made everyone think, and another idea broke out in Nog's head. He thanked Cuculi for a wonderful hint that brought him to the right opinion. The owner announced that the first institution in the city would be the best retail store. It will be the beginning of a new era. Everyone froze. The decision was so unexpected that the silence hung. Jichan commented that it was too simple, and the Moon Hunter was doubted whether such a shop would be useful. Jaelna reminded that everything could be purchased from Raphael, and the loft added, to sell them in fact nothing, there are no stocks. Some people thought that Nogt was offering to share food, but he hurried to clarify, he meant a completely different, much larger one. The young owner stated that it was time to start the circulation of gold coins within the settlement. For example, the vapor brings trophies to the store and sells, making a profit. The store, in turn, sells meat to those who need it. Such a chain will create a stable economy. In other words, their town will return to the financial system that acted in the orc invasion. It will be a new support point that will restore the ancient order and well-being destroyed by war. Joseph agreed it would be good to return the old times. Noct enthusiastically exclaimed that they would revive the free market together. He added that they will trade unique goods, and this will make their settlement attractive to merchants from neighboring lands. And then they will definitely build a hotel. On the ground floor, they will equip a dining room where they will prepare foods that are nowhere to be found. The owner emphasized the profit will be distributed honestly, and all the valuable ones that will be divided equally between everyone. They already worked great in the fields, and now they have a carpenter, a hunter, and a chef. Everyone became a master of their own business. If everyone combines their skills, the result will be grand, and after the first success, they will even be able to introduce a land tax. Giola exclaimed, "Why at all tax?" Noct recalled that they managed to avoid paying this year. But next year the accounts will have to be paid. Without tax, they will not be able to live and develop together. To keep your homes, you need to act. The owner noticed doubts about the eyes of the residents, who were silent. Then he asked if no one wanted to join. The doll timidly wondered if it is not better to eat now. Noct assured that joint lunchties are possible at any time. Brother Galena recalled that she promised to open a tavern, but the girl refused. She herself will not handle it. Noct remembered how Galena fled from his family and how many humilities she experienced her dreams. The Luz also reminded, now is not the time for waste. The owner decided the starting capital is needed. He turned to the merchant Raphael. They say, it was time to realize the idea. He replied that he was waiting for this moment for too long. And then the Noct rolled down the mountain coins. He explained to his friends that he received this money as a reward for a small service for Raphael, and the merchant proudly stated that it is 50 million. And this will be enough for a lot, the owner stated. Everyone will receive a gift, 1 million. The atmosphere was immediately filled with delight. Now, as it has been said, everyone has not just money, but also a stock to realize any of their dreams. No idea will be left without funding. Noct also added that if someone suddenly needs help, he is always ready to support and provide everything you need to realize the designs. Jichan, looking at the money, already imagined a mistress of a cozy, noisy tavern. Her ancient dream has finally become closer. The owner recalled that every inhabitant came here with his story. Someone was looking for hope, someone was running away from the past, but all united around a common goal. Together they made this day possible and repelled the cruel horde. Others could seem, but these people stood through pain and difficulties. That is why each of them deserves their own. Yes, the sum is large, but not greater than their power, loyalty, and common way. The doll exclaimed that the free market is cool, and the Luz agreed. It looks profitable, even better than expected. The owner thanked Raphael for his help. He sincerely admitted, without a merchant would not have coped, but now I am glad that he convinced his friends of the correctness of his decisions. And with enthusiasm he announced, from now on his possession is a free economic zone. After that, he noted that now they had to decide on the place where construction will begin. Jaeon asked to show the map of the possessions she once made up. The map was really detailed and high quality. Noct looked at her and finally realized how big his land became. Galena advised to study it well, because the Lord should know every corner of his lands. Noct thought how good he visited the capital at one time. Although he was not going to copy its structure, the example was very instructive. So he decided he would build his own city from scratch, a city that will be created with love and joint efforts. After specifying the place on the map, he stated that it was there to start, but Gilmer doubted. The area looked too small. Galena was indignant. Why is the project so tiny, as if for some poor man? And yet, it's too far from her home. Noct only smiled in confusion. He remembered, if the place where the first field once was, now is empty, it can be the perfect point for building. Young Lord offered a different place. Hyena confessed, the choice is wonderful, but suddenly the Noct himself denied, this location is not suitable. All because it is too far away from the house of Kuklua, and Olivia will have to overcome the grueling road daily. Lord began to consider other options, and with each new choice, doubts only increased. He realized what is convenient now can be a problem later. It was difficult for him to make the final decision. Suddenly, a strange man appeared and offered his own option for construction. His appearance caught everyone by surprise. To Noct, it was the place he chose at the beginning. The owner asked the stranger who he was, but he silently turned and left, leaving the young man in full surprise. Then Pico explained that it was a new resident of the city Ranner. Although it is a little weird, there is no danger from it. Pico added that Ranner will work in Raphael's department. He will become part of a new store team. Raphael himself will also open his store here and promises to make a loud advertisement to the inhabitant of Noct. At the same time, Pico will become the director of the store. The owner was surprised by such a distribution of roles. He asked in early whether he was really confident in his decision, because it looks much older and more experienced. But Ranner shrugged. He is indifferent. He stated that the main thing in trade is not the age, but the ability to sell. Yes, he has a lot of knowledge, but he has not sold anything yet. The owner suggested that apparently people would scare away his spooky facial expression. Nogt asked why Ranner chose this place for construction. Suddenly, he came fire to enthusiasm. He explained that the store should be opened where the most people are, and this place is just that. It is here that both local and visitors gather. Ranner recalled that at first this place wanted to choose the Nogt himself. He confirmed, and Gelna grunted again that the place is not enough. The owner replied that he wanted to recreate something like the capital, so he does not focus only on the needs of today. We need to think about the future. Ranner noted that even the capital has been built for decades. First you need to solve urgent issues, and then think about the big. Young Lord agreed with these wise words and stated he made his choice. And he thought, although Ranner looks scary but speaks wisely, and his words have a deep meaning, if the development goes well, the settlement will change radically. Although the task is difficult, Ranner reassured, it is not necessary to complicate everything because there is one simple solution. He remembered how Raphael boasted the technique. You can reduce the finished building and easily move it anywhere. The idea was brilliant. The owner smiled. It really reminded him of the usual video game from his past life, only now everything was real. Young Lord realized that although Ranner does not look too attractive, but full of brilliant ideas and you can rely on it, but Pico, on the contrary, seemed frivolous. However, her charm is the main power. Together, they perfectly complement each other and can become a great team. Nog stated that once it can easily carry the buildings through the technique of reduction, the field itself can be moved to the west, and in its place to build the first store, because without fields cannot do, they give a lot of food. By applying his skill, he reduced the field, and gently formed it in the form of a compact block. Carefully picked up the field, moved it to a new place and increased to its original size. The result was perfect. The owner understood that moving the object does not require much magical power. He will be able to repeat it more than once without harming himself. Very quickly, the store was erected using the scheme and the same scaling technique. And Nogt watched with joy the result of his work. Kuklua asked if the store was already open because she wanted to become the first purchase. Pico, on the contrary, decided that the first product of the young lord should get free as a sign of respect. The dish proved to be surprisingly delicious, and Kuklua proudly confessed that she made every effort to grow vegetables. Noct realized that the trade would improve significantly, as Raphael was already interested in Kuklua vegetables. The circulation of goods will attract new guests to the settlement, and the coins will flow down. He said all this is called the creation of a real economy. The book has promised to do everything possible to supply both the store and people with fresh, delicious vegetables without interruption. The owner solemnly announced, from now on the first large, though small, the store in the city is officially opened. The store has become popular quickly, although it is still visited by local residents. Under normal conditions, production has been taking decades, but thanks to the skills of Nogt and the ability of Mayer, they have gone for generations in only 7 days. They were able to reproduce many types of products and adjust a stable, powerful production. Raphael said, even in the capital, it is impossible to find vegetables with such high sugar. He promised to sell the party at a very favorable price. Nogt thanked the merchant and wished him success. He also predicted that a large influx of guests would soon begin, including merchants who want to buy their goods. Having unique products and stable trade, Nogt decided that the perfect moment has come to fulfill an ancient dream. His true desire is to build a beautiful hotel, which will be the decoration of the settlement. Ghislaine asked if Nogt was doing it all for the hotel. The young man explained, if they started with him, Joseph would grunt without stopping, but now no one will be able to deny the benefit of such a house. Gelna noted that it would not be easy to move in the free market, but Nogt assured that he will always support her in all cases. And then he seriously said that he had a personal request for Gelna to help him build a real pearl of architecture. She reminded that she is a dwarf, not a box architect, and builds not something, but real houses with a soul. However, she is not an ordinary representative of her people, and if she wants, she will be able to create anything, though the palace. She even promised to make furniture, because it is not equal and it will be the perfect interior. Nogt confirmed with a smile. He knows well what Galna is capable of and invited her to start an important project. The first thing he said must be decided: who will manage the hotel. He does not want to keep records and accounts because after lunch he still needs to sleep. Galna agreed. Nogt is the worst option. It is better to trust this Joseph. Nogt went to Mayor and asked where Joseph is now. The maid replied that he was watering the fields. The owner acknowledged that the mayor still has little experience for complex calculations, so without Joseph cannot do. Then he asked if someone was free and suitable for such work. Mayor replied that she had just made a list with the appropriate candidates. Interested, Nogt began to study him carefully. He soon decided to visit Olivia, who was genuinely happy with the unexpected visit of young Lord. She said with a smile that she was glad to see him at home and asked to wait a little while she prepared a treat. The girl confessed that if Nogt came a little earlier, she would have got to lunch. Although, honestly, you can have a snack now. Kuklua, meanwhile, settled and stated that she would not move. Olivia suggested to taste a cake with rare Namkali cheese and fruit sauce. It was a special dish. Having made a small bite, the Nogt felt saturated sweetness and fresh fruit notes. This food pleased not only the stomach but also the soul. Olivia asked if the young lord really wanted it to manage a new hotel. Nogt replied, this is the perfect solution, unless it is difficult for her. Kuklua promised to look after her mother, so everything would be fine, and Nogt wondered what she did before his arrival. Olivia explained that she had taken the medicine. After all, there is no doctor in their lands, and if something happens, the mayor itself is dangerous. Therefore, it is better to have a stock. Olivia confessed that she was thinking of opening a pharmacy as soon as she had everything he needed. In the head of Nogt, he immediately flashed the image of a beautiful Olivia as a local doctor. The ideas were so bright that the young lord even jumped pressure, and he suspected that they all noticed it. Olivia suggested finding a decent candidate for hotel management. Soon Nogt met the same Hannah, the daughter of Olivian acquaintances, and drew attention to her sophisticated posture and long hair. Together with Hannah, her father, the head of the Levi family, a man who immediately made the impression of an experienced professional. Olivia explained that once Levi's family successfully managed the hotel, so they have invaluable experience in this area. Levi noted that it was a long time ago, even before Hannah was born, but Nogt replied, they are perfect for leading the first hotel on his lands. Galna joked that all this fuss because of the little things, like the hotel is the main thing to receive guests and clean. But Levi and Nogt did not agree with that opinion. They explained, a good hotel is the face of the city, and its level speaks of the self-esteem of the residents. Galna did not seem, who had all decided that the hotel should be a business card. Nogt replied, all the events of life, work, travel, fun end with a hotel, and it is his people who remember the latter. The hotel is the finish of every wandering day, and it is he who makes the overall impression of the whole city. Nogt finally realized that Mr. Levi really suits this position. He had a rich experience and understood how to organize the hotel immediately. Levi added, the main thing in the hotel is a service from the bottom of the heart, which is when travelers will return again. And the most important parts of the hotel are the bedroom and dining room. In this with the note, they fully came together. Both Levi himself and the young master were surprised how their thoughts coincide. But in silence, each of them stood stubbornly on his own. Nogt was convinced that a comfortable bedroom is the main thing. And Levi argued that, first of all, there should be a chic dining room. It should become the heart of the hotel. A real dispute broke out between them. No one wanted to concede and accept another's point of view. The owner thought that Levi was a little crazy, but he was recommended by Olivia, so it was impossible to discard the candidate. However, it is not possible to leave everything as it is. Nogt decided to prove that he was right and show Levi what true hotel justice looks like. To resolve the dispute, Nogt and Levi have agreed to hold competitions and find out who is right. Joseph, seeing the bustle, only sighed. Again, these two thought something strange. Let at least breathe, he muttered. Young Lord explained that Galna will create special hotel layouts, which will then improve her technique, so they will make the dream of a perfect hotel in less than an hour. Nogt took a piece of paper and began to describe in detail what his perfect hotel should be. Levi picked up the challenge. It will be fun. The owner solemnly announced that the one whose hotel will really be the best in the world. The first version presented a Nogt. He urged to evaluate the layout and share his impressions. The owner noted that the plan is fully in line with his vision. Everything was perfect, except the reception. He also showed a recreation area he considered perfect. But Levi noted that everything looks too monotonous. He suggested changing the approach and advised to avoid multi-layered mattresses because it is better with depreciation. Nog denied everyone thinks that the main thing is a mattress, but this is a false thought. The mattresses wear out quickly. In fact, important springs that distribute the weight are evenly. Its beds have 1,500 springs, so they are soft, reliable, and durable. Levi's turn has come. His layout was half of the dining room, half of the bedroom. Nogt was surprised. The kitchen occupied 2/3 of the space. It is no longer a hotel. Levi replied, when people want to relax, they seem to just sleep. But this is just an illusion. Everything is much deeper. The most valuable memories of guests receive from delicious food, drinks, and entertainment at the end of a hard day. This is what generates the desire to return. In business, sometimes someone wins and someone loses, and the winner takes everything. Gailna suddenly showed her layout. Nogt was surprised that she was also involved. The girl explained, it is useless to create comfortable beds if the guest does not even want to go to the hotel. The most important is the appearance. Her hotel was reminiscent of a fairy tale castle that attracts from afar, and it really had an effect. Nogt acknowledged that the project looks cool. Gailna assured that in such a hotel he would sleep like a baby, but the owner doubted too large a building. It can be tired before bedtime. Gailna was indignant that he had rejected her version so quickly, but Nogt only noted, now it is clear to everyone who has any ideas, and he suggested that a draw. However, Levi and Gailna were infused. It is necessary to determine the winner. He will become the one whose hotel will accept the most guests. So the competition for the best hotel of a large settlement will be considered officially successful. Mayor reported that 12 out of 43 residents stopped at the young owner's hotel, and the hotel at Levi was 14. As of now, the competition is almost exactly the competition. Nogt thought that there was nothing special at the opponent's hotel, and he was not going to seem to levy, so he decided to visit himself and see how things were going. He was amazed at the spot. Lion Hotel was full of life, laughter, music, aroma of food. The atmosphere prevailed extremely lively. The owner was indignant. By all the rules, you cannot eat 3 hours before bedtime. How could the locals approve such late meals? In his opinion, it is more like a restaurant or cafe, but not exactly the hotel. All this seemed unacceptable to him. But despite his dissatisfaction, Nogt still asked for a portion for the cook. The aroma won the principles. Fed and exhausted, he tried to relax for a bit, because his eyes were already sticking to fatigue. Joseph explained, the reason is overeating. The body just surrendered after so many calories. The owner denied he ate only 1 plate, but Joseph said with a smile, in fact there were 3. Mayor was immediately alert, and suddenly there was a poison in the food. But Nogt reassured her, everything is wonderful. Not only does the food safe, it has a gentle effect on the stomach and even improves digestion. Some ingredients are even useful at bedtime. In Levi, everything is thought out to the smallest things. Even the spices are selected taking into account night metabolism. Levi did not say in vain, there are winners and winners in business, and he really planned and implemented at the highest level. Nogt acknowledged, Levi showed not only ideas but also real actions. That is why he is an impressive person. The owner finally confessed that he completely lost this competition. Levi is an ideal example, and his hotel is the best place to spend. Birthday. At this point, Burden approached and said she wanted to talk. And suddenly she suggested a note to spend the night. The owner thanked Levi for a delicious dinner and asked if there would be a free room. He kindly agreed and promised to show it personally. Levi proudly led him a corridor and said, there will be enough space for everyone, especially for a guest of honor. He noted that there are 1,500 springs in each bed, the dining room on the ground floor, recreation areas on the second and third, everything is created for the perfect reception of guests. No drawback, Levi said that he installed such beds everywhere. Asked how he managed to win, he replied, when he looks at Nogt, he sees himself in his youth. Once upon a time, he, like Nogt, chased after his dream without thinking about the consequences, and because of this he hurt those who had to protect. The dream was too far away, the forces were exhausted, and the harm was more than good. At this point Burden exclaimed loudly, it is time to sleep for a long time, and Levi, smiling, asked to speak quieter. The young lord was already sleeping peacefully, and on his face, the expression of true bliss had frozen, as if he finally felt that real peace was. Before going to bed, Nogt enjoyed a hot head of the open air, thinking about his true vocation. In his opinion, his own open-air bath is a brilliant invention. Mayor suggested trying the fresh juice that had just invented. Lord was a little discorded by such attention and answered that he could pour himself. The mayor did not stop and suggested a relaxing massage. Nogt felt absolutely happy, and this moment was really worth it. He confessed that silence around creates the illusion of stopped time. Long away from a daily fuss is a true blessing. The owner noted that everyone deserves to feel such bliss and be alone with themselves, but Mayer reminded that he was not alone, she was always around. But Nogt smiled and replied, "She is like an air that fills the lungs with freedom, and it is at this moment." He felt someone's gaze. Looking back, he saw the burdened giant, who shouted that she also wanted to buy. The young man immediately mentioned Joseph's strict guidance about girls who are easily undressed. To avoid confusion, the Nogt decided Burden cannot be allowed closer. He asked why she came. Maybe she was hungry again, but Burden was already standing nearby, and the Lord realized he miscalculated again. So he decided to have a little fun with her and threw her tree like a trophy to catch it. The giant did everything possible and skillfully coped, which deserved praise from the owner. But Nogt noticed that Burden was upset for some reason and did not want to play further. She behaved somehow strange. She seems to be embarrassing because of the presence of Mayer. But in the end she confessed, she is very bored and she wants to work, simply can no longer a blast. The young man decided that it sounds silly, she is already a thinker, but the girl replied, this is not enough, she wants to do more for settlement. Lord called her amazing, but Burden firmly stated that she wants to become truly useful for him and for all residents. Is there appropriate work for her? Inventive Mayer came to the rescue. She suggested trying on a costume of the maid. Burden has honestly confessed, to move in this form is extremely inconvenient, but Mayer noted that fashion and comfort are incompatible, we need to learn to endure. Burden wondered, are there any clothing for giants at all? The Mayer turned to Nogt, they say, one servant will have enough, but Nogt explained, children often follow what they see, so Burden has to get a chance to try. Hearing that she was compared to the baby, Burden was indignant at all that she was not at all, but Nogt reassured her, they say, he understands everything and did not want to offend. The giant stated that she would also do the owner of the massage, as the Mayer did, but she said strongly, only she is a real maid and will not allow it. Nevertheless, Mayer began to teach Burden the basics of homework. She explained that the good dream of Nogt requires quiet music and atmosphere of forest with clean air. Burden nodded, they say, everything was clear. But instead of harmony from the room, strange sounds were heard, which only annoyed Nogt and did not allow him to fall asleep. He annoyedly asked to stop this chaos around his bed. Mayer instructed Burden to bring water from the well to water the garden, but gladly agreed, but her way. The pouring of water turned into a real flood, it just washed away some of the beds. The Mayer grabbed her head, the delicacy is not about Burden. Nogt strictly stated that such a fragile job is not suitable for her, but suddenly the unexpected happened. One of the plants came to life and began to attack aggressively. It was the Mandragora graga. Nogt explained that the plant considers itself attacked and crazy. Burden immediately rushed to the rescue. She grabbed the angry plant and stated firmly she would not allow anyone to harm her master. Oddly enough, the plant calmed down. Burden even asked if she understood her. At this point, Grag appeared and apologized. Nogt said that such escapes from the garden could not be allowed. But Burden was upset. During her running, her skirt broke. She said she couldn't work so much. The owner immediately realized he found a job for her, which is perfect. He suggested becoming his personal security guard. This is just that she knows the best. The guard protects good people and follows the order, if she agrees. Burden exclaimed that she was ready to become a guardian of young Lord. But Noct warned, no stupid, now it should be serious and responsible because it is a real mission. Mayer agreed a security guard is a noble and important profession. Burden joyfully promised to do something really useful. Meanwhile, the Mayer processed her scratches with cellular healing technique. Noct wondered if she liked a new role. After all, it already goes to the mountains for meat, and now it will remain even less time. Nadine, that is, Burden, has sincerely admitted that she wanted a job that would allow more time to do next to the young owner. Noct was red with surprise. It was embarrassed. He asked the Mayer to do the rest, and he hurried to escape, making sure that Burden behaves like an innocent child. Mayer wondered where Lord was now going. Noct replied that he wanted to just go back to the bed and finally sleep properly. But he thought again, instead of Burden's work, it would be necessary to teach common sense. After all, she is a real child in her soul. Although, who knows, it is a giant, you will not determine the age, and for her behavior you will never say whether she is excited or not. Suddenly the excited mug appeared and hugged Noct firmly. The young man asked what happened to her and why she was so worried. The girl complained that she came across a pervert. Noct was stunned and wanted to find out immediately what had happened. In the memory of Lord, a strange case with Joseph immediately appeared when he was somehow offered by a humidifier. He was engulfed by horror, and suddenly it is he. Such behavior cannot be forgiven. Kuklua explained, someone watched her from the bushes and she was sure it was a scoundrel. Nogt exclaimed that Joseph had crossed all borders, but it was not him. Little Anna, Levi's daughter, sat in the bushes. Lord approached the girl and asked what she was doing here and why hiding. Anna was getting rid of and confessing. She just wanted to make friends with a doll, so she followed her. Nogt was happy. Everything turned out to be innocent childhood curiosity. Joseph here to nothing, and he praised Anna for his sincere desire to be friends. But Anna said she had not time to say anything. Kuklua fled. Nogt explained that there is nothing wrong with this, just Kuklua, a little. Crazy, he called the Lycitian girl, astonishing how quickly she runs. I thought, Kuklua is very shy, but it is time to get used to other people. He said that Anna sincerely wanted to play, just didn't know how to say it. Kuklua promised to try to communicate better. And then she gladly exclaimed that she was ready to play something interesting. Nogt decided it's time to try something new. He asked the girls to stand around and relax. He wanted to try the reduction technique. The result was surprised. She worked perfectly on Kuklua, but when it came to Anna, some repulsive force appeared. Nogt calmly asked Anna not to worry or resist. Everything would be fine. On the second attempt, Nogt technique worked perfectly. Both girls decreased to a tiny size. Kuklua was a little upset that she became too small, but Nogt promised that everything would turn back, though a little later. He apologized that he scared them a little and showed the girls a plum tree. Anna immediately told her friend that the plums were very sweet. She proposed to taste. Kuklua, amazed, praised the owner's skills. They were really amazing. Kuklua whispered to Anna that Nogt was a very cool guy, and Anna agreed with a smile. Lord suggested starting the game and explained, if you look at the world with other eyes, he is full of miracles. He realized that despite different abilities, both girls were children, and that is their common. But it is not so important. The main thing is that they have fun together, and they are genuinely happy. After playing with the girls, Nogt returned home. He wanted to sleep a little. But when he went into the room, he saw in his bed Burden, who slept sweetly. It seemed to him that another child was in front of him. The smile touched his lips. In the morning, a merchant Raphael visited the estate. Joseph explained that the owner worked much yesterday and is now resting. He added that sometimes the Nogt looks older even than him. Nogt apologized for his appearance and asked why Raphael came so early. He replied, he found a very useful person, a magician. The owner was happy. He knew how high in this world the wizards were appreciated for his extraordinary abilities. Magicians are those who receive a blessing of kind or wisely master magic, study magic books, and undergo training at the academy under the guidance of a mentor. Nogt, as a descendant of a noble kind, understood that such an alliance would be extremely beneficial to him, so he quickly dressed to personally congratulate the newcomer. On the doorstep, 3 strangers, Saido, June, and Lion, were waiting for him. They explained that they had previously served in the Royal Magic Army. Nogt realized that these people were not just sorcerers, but real masters with great experience and reputation. Saido added that a lot has changed in their lives. 3 magicians explained that they are now looking for a new job. Nogt gladly replied that he would be pleased to take such people. Lion reminded that they were an elite detachment, but not mind to work in the settlement temporarily if benefit. Nogt noticed that Lion looks nervous and even trembling. To reassure her, he wondered what magic they use. Lion began to tell how they participated in the expedition and created a base in one of the cities. But Saido interrupted her. They say, you should not tell unnecessary. A dispute broke out between Liot and other sorcerers. They even began to quarrel because of the name of their detachment. The girls accused each other of excessively talking, discussing the past, but everything has changed sharply. When Lino saw Joseph, she immediately embarrassed and stopped talking. The young lord was genuinely glad that representatives of the former Royal Magic Army appeared on his land. Their skills could be a great property, but Linot's reaction to Joseph alarmed him. He wondered what the detachment was doing during his service. At that time, Linnet looked at Joseph with suspicion, considering him a pervert. Nevertheless, she replied, their group was a specialized team of magical cultivators. Uno Jono added that it was not very honorable. Saido sighed, it happened, because for the most part they just dug the earth. Nogt was surprised by such a contrast in reactions. Raphael explained that their detachment was called Dirt, so people call the earthly magicians. Probably that's why they tried to hide their specialization, so that no one is embarrassed. Nogt joked that they were like children playing in the sand, but Saido assured, it's not, the owner misunderstood everything. Nogt replied that on the contrary, it's great, and it is such experts that he needs. The witches were lost. They could not understand what this strange lord actually implies. Then Noct explained, the motto of his land is to live as he likes and to do what you love. With these skills, they can do a lot of benefits. He asked if they could help with the construction and repair of the road. Saito wondered and asked if he should first build a city wall. It was interested in Lord. Why did they immediately sleep with the wall? Lynette explained, before you enter the city, she examined all the protective structures. In her opinion, they are in a very pathetic state. Saito confirmed that the city's defense capability is almost zero. If another attack occurs, it will not be possible to repel. The walls can fall at any moment. Juno added that these walls are more like paper. In the event of a true threat, they will not save anyone. Lian critically noted that she was not interested in who built these walls, but the project itself was a complete failure. Noct honestly confessed it was he who erected them. The sorcery of the witch immediately softened and began to say that it was a joke, and that the walls were really quite normal. Young Lord thanked the girls for their honest assessment and professional look. He said it would be happy if they work for the benefit of the settlement. Their experience is invaluable. Bite was unexpectedly burst into cursing with happiness. She confessed that she had never heard such warm words about her work in her life. Juno ordered her friend to stop crying immediately. They say, tears on people cannot be shown. Saito, fearing the anger of a girlfriend, justified. She cries not from emotions, but because of pollen that got into her eyes. Noct realized, these girls probably experienced a lot of pain in the past. He decided to entrust them with the most important thing, the erection of new city walls. Lion asked if he really was trusting the responsibility to those who had just met. The owner replied that he should be recognized by people, even if he knew them for a long time. Lion did not expect such words and could not hold back emotions. Noct saw sincere tears in her glance and realized it was not easy for them to leave the past and come here to the country's very border. He remembered similar experiences from his past life, sometimes not the result, but the depth of understanding. Lynette promised that their team would fulfill the task as best as possible. After all, former members of the elite royal magic troops will be able to build a wall that no enemy will break through. Noct thought that he also wanted to join the construction, to do something useful on his own. He reported Graga about the planned work. Grag was happy they will finally have a real wall. He remembered how during the last attack of the orcs he had to allow Burden himself to fight because he was refused. He was ashamed that he was constantly resting on girls, but Noct reassured him, you should not worry about it. He explained that Burden simply does not realize the values of things. It can destroy enemies without any regret, it is usual, so there is no reason to worry about her. The owner said that he plans to take advantage of the wisdom of elite magicians and to entrust them to create a real wall for guards. Lian replied that she would do everything that the lord of these lands would order. But Juno reminded they are not enough for such a large-scale task. Saito proposed to divide work into 6-hour changes. Grag replied that they did not need to worry, they have free hands. He swayed with his living plants and explained that they could help in construction. Young Lord Noct was surprised when he saw a whole crowd of men who gathered together. And if there was a Borden here, she would have already got into a fight. At the same moment, she would already spread something without hesitation. Ryan poked one of the plants, which causes the Greg. She apologized but honestly said, the plant looks creepy and reflected. Greg asked not to offend his pet because he considers them friends. He became very unfortunate. He began to hide the faded plant, which surprised the witch. Even Noct did not expect Greg to become a real dinner of plants. The owner urged everyone to just make friends. As a sign of reconciliation, everyone gathered for a common tea party. Someone wondered if Greg really served in the army. Joseph confirmed it and remembered how little Noct fought with his brother. Meanwhile, Lian and Greg created a plan of defense structures. The girl already had ideas for implementation. Lynette proposed to start with a double gate where the traps could be arranged. Juno add sharp spikes and moats to attack the enemy from a safe position. Saito added the idea, a suspended bridge with water below to drop the attackers. Noct listened and wondered if these girls were in the army. But Greg said that they did not crash, and their suggestions are so, especially considering the properties of Mandry. It grows too fast, which will complicate the use of ditching with water. Noct was convinced that Greg was really strongly attached to his plants. A few days have passed after the witch from the Royal Magic Army. Noct was under the sun, and Joseph, as always, grumbled at the owner for his laziness. Noct explained that rest is part of a sustainable approach to business. Joseph raised security issues. Is it normal that Lord is so indifferent in the middle of the day? Noct replied that everything is under control, and if something happened, he would be told right away. The young owner believed that everyone should do what he likes. It is then that the person shows the best result, not when they are forced to change. The Bagretsky acknowledged that it sounds good, but Lord should still take care of his lands. Nogt decided that it was in vain to persuade the grunting Joseph and went to see how things were going. During the walk, he noticed satisfied residents. People rejoiced that they settled here. They liked the food delicious, varied, fresh. Joseph said that at first glance everything is well, and he is genuinely happy. Nogt recalled that he had many rare things that he brought to the city by a merchant Raphael from different parts of the world. Nogt thought that residents would be interested to see all these novelties. The trading area was filled with people. Meshi servant rejoiced in unfamiliar face and arriving merchants from other cities. Young Lord noted that the economy is improving. New residents from distant possessions are constantly coming to them, and this is not only because of Raphael's rare goods. According to Nogt, there is now a lot of unique in the city things that are nowhere else. Even unusual berries are a business card of their lands, and thanks to the ability to increase and the skills of Marshy, even non-seasoned vegetables are now available. He stated that their market has everything for any buyer. The merchant Raphael advertised everything, and that gave the result, and Nogt conceived a new plan. With the help of increasing the increase, he created a giant greenhouse just here in the settlement. Joseph immediately found a reason to complain. They say the glass was too expensive for such fun, but Meshi assured that it looks incredibly beautiful. Nogt explained that the glass perfectly passes the sun and keeps warm. Thanks to the greenhouse, even without magic, everyone will be able to grow vegetables at any time. Joseph acknowledged did not expect such innovations. The owner replied, "They revived these lands, and everything that was planted in the beginning is already fruit." Meanwhile, the witches completed the construction of the last area of the wall. Nogt thanked and thought they were really incredible. One of the magicals showed the layout, and Nogt was surprised by its weight despite compactness. The girls explained that they created a project of 3, using materials filled with deadly magic. Although the layout is small, in the enlarged form it will be a great design. Lynette added that they have developed several ways to destroy enemies. Only additional information about possible attackers is required. Nogt stopped her, saying that it was not time for it. Instead, he decided to see everything with his own eyes, and he activated the skill of enlargement. The wall instantly turned into a giant protective structure. The owner was gripping the result. Now the city looked like the royal palace. Lyon proudly stated that no threat is no longer terrible to these lands. The wall turned the settlement into a real, inaccessible fortress. Nogt did not hide his delight. He realized now their city is truly protected and ready for any trials. Even demons now do not pose a threat. No creature will overcome these magical fortifications. But the joy disappeared in an instant. A horrible roar came from the forest. Something giant was rushing to the city. Panic began because from a new threat air, the walls were powerless. The giant dragon widening in the sky above the city, looking a victim. His shadow was shaking the earth with horror. Young Lord Nogt froze. What he saw seemed too absurd even for his mysterious lands. As soon as the defensive wall was completed, the little kingdom became almost inaccessible. Everyone believed that the city is safe now, but the appearance of the dragon destroyed this illusion immediately. Fear and doubt settled in the heart of Nogt. He realized there is not enough ordinary protection. The next morning, he took up the search for a solution. All night he rushed in books, looking for an answer how to resist a flying monster. The Joseph Bagretsky was amazed at his zeal. Nogt replied that as soon as he found the answer, he would go to bed immediately. Let Joseph not worry. Even Meshi asked him to relax, but he could not. The residents of the city also did not sleep, covered with fear. You need to put an end to the evil as soon as possible. However, there was almost nothing in the library of the master of the Reinford. These creatures are so legendary that even their weaknesses are no one knows. At this point, Jaelna flew into the room, shouting that they simply had no other choice. Her brilliant idea is to build a huge tavern, the time, they say, for drinking. Diana added that, with a good drink, Nogt will quickly forget about the dragon, but Lord recalled that he had heard it from Jaelna more than once. It's time to come up with something new. Alcohol is not a solution. But she insisted the real epidemic of drinking is already dominated outside. People sink in bottles, seeking comfort. Hiana said that at least a special place for this purpose is a bar so that people do not drink right on the streets. Before the eyes of Nogt, there was a shocking picture, a crowd of drunk who left work and looking for only alcohol. He could not believe that all this happened in one night. So I decided to act immediately. If you do not solve the problem with the dragon, the settlement will simply die from alcohol. Nog decided to send intelligence outside the city, but the question was who to take. Lutz is an experienced hunter. Greg is a strong adventurer and tumor. Lion is an elite Magan of land from the Royal Army. Saito is also from the army, but also extremely intelligent. Juno is a magician. Ferdin is a giant with incredible force. Joseph is an annoying node. And of course, Marcia is a faithful, witty healing maid. It was a difficult choice. Nogt could not decide for a long time which of them was able to go with him on this dangerous journey. Greg had a wonderful combat experience and was able to tame creatures. It could become the key. But at the same time, his impulsiveness could destroy the whole team. The city's protection was also needed in case of failure. Then it would be necessary to evacuate residents urgently. That is why Nogt decided to carefully consider other candidates for the mission. He finally made a choice. Juno was tasked with coordinating communication during the expedition. She assured that she would cope perfectly. The Lutz elves have entrusted the leading role in intelligence. Her hunter's experience had to become crucial. Lutz confessed that she saw the dragons earlier and would do everything right. In the mood of the team, there was confidence, but the Nogt reminded everyone to be extremely careful. Ferdin loudly assured that it would be. But he understood, despite power, Ferdin could be the weakest link. In addition, the Elfian Lutz looked too nervous. Although she had the experience of fighting with monsters, this time there was a real mythical dragon. Soon, a neverticated group came across the same dragon. However, instead of horror, a surprise was waiting for them. A huge monster was calmly eaten by small berries. Juno was surprised, the red scales like a predator, and in fact, the dragon is omnivorous. She asked the thinker what to do next. Lutz only eagerly came to the flask, avoiding answers. This reaction surprised everyone. Nog took the flask and realized there is no water at all. In strong alcohol, Lutz explained that drinking helps her forget about fear. Otherwise, it does not withstand tension. Drinking allows you to get distracted. Nogt acknowledged his mistake and apologized to Lutz for drawing it into it, but Juno suddenly exclaimed that there was no time. The dragon noticed them and rapidly approaching. The group was killed without knowing what to do. Nogt tried to understand why the dragon was so interested in ordinary berries. But suddenly Ferdin screamed, "The dragon eats her favorite berries." Without pulling herself, she rushed at him. She also ran an Elfian. Nogt tried to stop them, but it was already happening. It was similar to a story with a black Iberian pig, which is fed acorns for a better taste. Only now stood a dragon and berries in the center. Anna ate berries from her childhood, and over time, her body was full of their aroma. It was this smell that brought the dragon to her. But Nogt calmed down. It seems that only Burdin was interested in the monster and had no other intentions. But unexpectedly, the dragon went not to the giant, but carefully crawled to the Olflavs. The whole situation seemed absurd. Noct did not understand anything. Everything was strange and incredible. And here a flying monster. It apologized for the frightened, like I wanted nothing evil. Nogt did not believe his ears. Can dragons speak? Lutz confirmed that it was possible, but even for her for the first time. The dragon laughed, even as they can, and even so loud that no inhabitant will be able to fall asleep calmly. A powerful rick stirred the air. All were shocked by the power of sound that broke around. But the dragon only asked if everyone was fine. Nogt was surprised even more. Such a creature looked scary but behaved politely. It all looked strange, but even with goodwill, the dragon gave true fear. The owner decided and asked why he arrived in these lands, because he was not here before. In response, the dragon stated that he came here exclusively for the sake of robbery. But immediately he reassured, he didn't gather to frighten anyone. He just dreamed of trying purple berries that Titan's daughter loves. Noct wondered why the dragon still didn't try them. He replied that Burdin was so glad when he was eating that he was sorry for him to take away this pleasure. Burdin was indignant. Was he not a pity for him, which he was scared of trembling? The dragon apologized and confessed. He was attracted to the smell of alcohol, and it surprised him. He barely restrained himself from temptation, and Nogt only sighed. He did not expect the dragon to be interesting alcohol. The dragon modestly asked for permission to drink at least a sip of aromatic drink. Lutz immediately poured strong alcohol into a bowl, and Nogt asked to wait. Using the magic of increasing objects, he instantly turned a small bowl into a huge bowl. The dragon looked into a large bowl with a drink, and Nogt suggested that he taste the treat. They covered the table together, gathered berries, which the young lord increased with magic so that everyone was enough. For the first time in history, the magical dragon and people sat at one table, drank, ate, and communicated joyfully. The dragon confessed that everything is delicious. He later said that the young gentleman had two abilities, the increase he had just seen, and probably the decrease, he guessed himself. The dragon explained, if the burden, a gigantic girl, now the usual size, then someone accurately reduced her, and he wanted to meet Nogged for a long time, such a friend was not enough. Burden had fun exclaiming that the dragon could be friends with her, because she is a guard of Nogged himself. The dragon laughed, if she is a security guard, why does this Nogged constantly cover her pranks? And suddenly, his giant tail rose, everyone was scared, getting ready for danger. But he just gently patted his head and said that he was a very nice guy. At that moment, the young man remembered how as a child his father also stroked him on his head. This feeling was warm and a little sad. The company continued the meal, and Burden was satisfied that she was eating to kid. The dragon wondered if she really liked these purple berries, and Nogged asked if he was going to leave these lands. The dragon confessed, at first he wanted to leave, but after getting acquainted with everyone, changed his mind. At that moment, he was enveloped by a magical aura. And in a moment, a huge monster turned into a strong, chunky man. Nogged was stunned by this change. The dragon explained that such ability can become a person when he wants. Nogged guessed that he had other forces not related to pure magic. The dragon asked if he could live among people in Nogged's possessions. Everyone was surprised. There was a naked draken man who seriously wanted to join the settlement. He explained that loneliness is no longer for him, and yet he has not tasted such delicious steak and human food for a long time. The dragon also admitted that he was interested in knowing the ability of Nogged himself. Young Lord Odoropes did not expect such admiration from the legendary beast. The dragon explained that people with such rare forces as Nogged always live interesting, and he would like to see what he is capable of. Nogged stopped and replied that everything was very confusing. The dragon assured that everything is much easier than it seems, and called everyone just to have a good time together. Nogged inadvertently mentioned his childhood, then such words sounded often, and life was full of joy. Young Lord solemnly stated that as the owner of these lands, I was glad to greet the dragon in his house. In response, he named his name Hornbin and thanked the hospitality. They shook their hands as a sign of friendship, but Nogged did not restrain the cry. The dragon inadvertently squeezed too much. He apologized because he was not used to the human body. From that moment, a new powerful ally, a red dragon, appeared in the small valley. Mr. Atrab became fond of city walls, who built a detachment of elite magicians together with Mr. On. The detachment returned home with a new friend, and Nogged mentally noted that in Mr. Atrab's there is something from his late father, the same power and confidence. Lion asked if the dragon was found in the forest, but Nogged replied that the mission was unsuccessful and the dragon could not be found. In fact, he did not want to scare the locals, so he hid the truth that they not only found the dragon, but also brought him to the city. He whispers confessed to Lion that the dragon was with them. The surprised sorceress wanted to ask more, but Nogged covered her mouth with her hand and asked to silently go with him to the office. There, without witnesses, he told all the truth to his close friends as they found the dragon and what happened next. Lina wondered where the dragon was now, and she received an unexpected answer just here in the room. At first, everyone thought it was another Nogged joke, and they began to joke the dragon in vases and curtains. But Atrab decided to show the truth. He pointed to himself that everyone was finally believed. The shocked Magic shouted, the dragon really turned into a person. Hornbin asked if it was possible to regain a true shape, but Nogged restrained it in this form it would destroy everything around. Concerned Linnet took Nogged sideways and asked if he was really sure that it was a good solution to bring the dragon to the city. Nogged thought and realized that he had no answer. How can he be sure that the dragon is not a threat to settlement? Meanwhile, Grab became interested in Greg, noticing something special in him. His work seemed quite interesting. But Greg did not understand what it was about and began to be a little nervous. The Hornbell explained that the scratched armor and smell guessed Greg, probably the ucratittle of creatures. And Hornbin suggested that he was also growing mandragors. Nogged was worried, fearing that it would cause a bad impression in the dragon. But everything turned out to be an alarm. Hornbin confessed with a smile that he had once grown these plants. Young Lord sighed with relief. He did not think that the mighty dragon would admire such things. The moved Greg shouted that he finally found a related soul. He was often reproached for his love of the mandragon, and Hornbin praised his knowledge. The dragon shared that he once flew the whole world in search of the best soil, the most fertile lands, in his opinion, in the south and in the magical forest. Then he swayed what a giant mandragore he grew up. Greg admitted enthusiastically, it is 3 times more than he had. He asked what the secret was. And then Hornbin asked Greg, does he want to become his student? He agreed without hesitation, promising to do everything possible to justify the hopes of his new mentor. Noct noticed how easy and quickly the dragon found common ground with people. Even Lion was surprised by such friendship. Greg confessed that he is the hardest to lose those who care for, but even when they die, travelers continue to grow in the ground. Linote said she could not believe how quickly everyone was mounted with a dragon. Nod nodded is really unusual, but it must have been going to go. Then the young lord warned friends, the true essence of Hornbin is a mystery that only they should know, otherwise the city will engage in panic. Noct decided that the sociable nature of the hornbeam would be useful for the city. He was going to go to rest, but the dragon suddenly offered a walk. He has not communicated with people for a long time and sincerely sought it. However, seeing the confusion of Noct, he apologized for his excessive initiative. Lord realized that this was a great idea and agreed, it is better to go right away. Grab asked if it was indeed now. Noct smiled, why not? It is time to show the dragon city. A new friend had to get acquainted with its inhabitants. The Garb thoughtfully suggested that you start getting acquainted from the city from the market. Noct replied that this is the most human place, here shopping and gossip. Raphael Merchant supplies all the goods, and here you can find the best sake. Hearing about sake, the dragon was interested in a real drink should relax the soul and give sincere pleasure. Noct thought and remembered that their vegetables from the greenhouse were not worse, delicious, juicy, worth it to taste. Young Lord explained that the greenhouse was built through his magic and the skillful work of carpenters. With the help of glass properties, they can grow a crop of any time of year. Garb enthusiastically said that Noct was using his strength very well. Then he showed where the nadir jagoda grows and invited the dragon to taste. These are the berries that made sake in the forest. The dragon confirmed a guess and felt a magical aroma in the air. He asked what it was, but the Noct did, that it was nothing special, just lighting curiosity. As a result, he confessed that a small winemaker was ahead. The Garb was ready to rush there without stopping. But Noct detained him and advised him to first look at an even more interesting place. He showed a celestial bath, a real oasis for 5,000 rubles. Garb praised the appearance, but confessed that he was not very comfortable from hot springs. The dragon explained that it could not stand for a long time. Noct apologized for inconvenience and promised better leisure. The Garb also apologized that he had disturbed the peace of the city and the owner. It seemed hot. They enjoyed cold coffee, which Mr. Levi always prepared, and the dragon still felt a strange excitement. The drink did not help cool. Inside the hump, accumulated emotions broke out. The brutal instinct woke up without warning. He did not resist and splashed all out. It was like a real explosion. Levi fell with trays, feeling a wave of energy. Noct immediately realized that something went wrong, and in his actions, there was a mistake. Jaelna screamed in anger, "You have angered the dragon, and he has every right to such a reaction." But Noct did not sincerely understand what he did wrong. He just wanted to show the city they built, and thought that the sooner he did, the better. Jaelna annoyed that everyone wants to drink good alcohol now, and Noct would have to understand it. Young Lord turned to Garb, "Is it really so? And if the drink is the main thing, then he ordered to bring everything immediately." But Jaelna added that this is not enough. It is important not only to drink, but also where to do it. The Garb supported. A cozy place was needed, otherwise there is no pleasure. Noct was genuinely surprised. Does it matter where to drink? The dragon explained that he was drinking at home, or in eatery, is not the same as in a real bar. Jaelna said dreamily, "For adults in the sea of daily worries, the best fairy tale is a vacation in a good bar." She proclaimed the last phrase at the same time with the dragon, and it united them. Noct finally realized even creatures from different worlds want one, a cozy place for a glass of good drink. But Jaelna said with sadness that there was still no bar in the city. The hump was outraged. This could not be forgiven. Jaelna explained that the bar had been planning and their hands did not reach. The disappointed dragon exclaimed that this is a real tragedy. How can people live in a city without a bar? Noct regretted that he had underestimated it before. Garb and Jaelna were asked to organize construction as soon as possible to return the fairy tale to the souls of the inhabitants. Jaelna even called the dragon a friend. Noct was amazed at how quickly the dragon found common ground with the city's residents. Garb and Jaelna had a grip that the perfect bar should be, while they said they drank tea but dreamed of stronger. And in the end, the dream became a reality. The first bar opened in the city. Everyone came to the opening. A real turn of those who wanted to taste the atmosphere of a new place was lined up. Lord Noct received a message. He was reserved, and everyone is looking forward to him at the bar. He accepted the invitation and confessed to himself that he did not expect such, because in his past life he never was in the bar. Nogt opened a heavy door and crossed the threshold of a new establishment. The dragon Garb gladly greeted him and invited him to sit for a bar. The Garb found his vocation. He became a local bartender. Ready for the next block, the Garb suggested that Nogt try an unusual barrel for warming up. Benny brought a menu that was more like a thick book. Lord was surprised to unfold him, struck by the number of names and images. Nogt got rid of how Jailna with Dragon was enthusiastically talked about a rest in the bar, and he did not understand it at all, and it annoyed him. Garb asked what he would like to try. Nogt replied that he wanted something delicious and simple, and immediately thought that the bar was the worst choice. The dragon understood his embarrassment and advised to order something fresh, then it would look quite appropriate for a bar client. Realizing how the bar atmosphere works, Nogt decided to make an order. He wanted something that would help him fall asleep. He watched with curiosity with the coordinated movements of the hump. The young lord was fond of the dragon's ability to create a real miracle in his eyes. Soon the Garb handed him a glass with a drink. Nogt lifted a glass to his face, breathed aroma, and acknowledged that his smell was incredible. The dragon thanked the hospitality and explained that it was a special cocktail based on the wine of the Narch. The drink had a sweet taste with notes of lemon. Nogt made a few sips and sincerely confessed, "It is delicious." He wondered what the cocktail is called, but the Garb replied that the names for many drinks are not yet invented. So this is a great idea, to give a drink in honor of these lands, or call the cocktail the name of Lord Nogt himself. It caught the young lord by surprise. He confessed that he never thought that it would be so easy to relax in such a place. Nogt agreed to name the cocktail in his honor and asked to submit the same Jailni. The girl asked if he now realized the charm of the bar. And now he really realized that it was the fairy tale in the middle of everyday life, which Jailna was talking about. The next glass of Nogt decided to present Olivia. Her beautiful eyes glowed with joy. She was also happy to visit here. Olivia said that the bar was very pleasant and asked if it would be possible to come more often. Nogt replied that this institution was open to all. Lord Nogt ordered another drink for a young lady, looking pleased, and the doll happily accepted this news. The doll was a little upset because she was poured only milk, but the young lady lifted a glass and called on everyone to drink. Raphael's merchant also visited the bar, which surprised Nogt. Lord hurried to explain that he may not understand Raphael misunderstood. He did not intend to interfere with the affairs of his subordinates, but the merchant assured that everything was fine and suggested that Nogt get something for himself. Raphael spoke about the existence of the subway underground and suggested using it to develop the settlement infrastructure. It turned out that the old mine connects the lands of Big Samal and Hadlet. In ancient times, precious stones and minerals were extracted here. But after the invasion of the orcs, the mine was thrown because of the lack of workers. Now Nogt realized that the times have changed and this resource could be used. Raphael convinced that this mine was able to return the former wealth. The merchant lifted a glass and suggested drinking for new perspectives. Nogt thought it was a real devilish seduction. Raphael was right, they will find new materials. Jailna will definitely create something interesting. They continued to drink, discussing plans. After talking to the merchant, Nogt felt as if a certain point of non-return. The maid mayor congratulated the lord on his return, and with her there was a Greg with a nude, who excitedly asked her to repeat her ability. Greg believed that by activating the Kabisuka cell, they would be able to destroy the monster, and Nogt thought that such ideas could lead to a biological disaster. The Joseph Begretsky listened to the plans carefully and said that Lord's abilities would allow him to get rich quickly on precious. Mayor wondered who Nogt would entrust the production, but Lord replied that first it was necessary to explore the whole territory because the mine has been abandoned for many years. He decided to personally check her condition and destroy all the monsters who could breed there. After cleaning the area, it will be possible to send workers. Lord stated that he personally went to the intelligence of the mine, so you need to determine who would go with him. I immediately decided that he would take Burden with him, because without a fight with the monsters cannot do, and still need to choose how many people need for a mission. Mayor asked her to take her with her, because in the event of her ability, she will be useful. Nogt agreed, the healer on such a trip will not be superfluous. Greg also stated that he wanted to join the expedition and help in research. The enthusiastic Homemark explained that he should collect all new monsters who can live in a cave. Lord Nogt did not like it too much. He warned that Liani will accurately kill Greg if he was drawn again by some monster to the city. But Greg was not going to retreat and genuinely begged to let him go together because he really wants it. Lord wondered if Greg has not been crazy lately and whether he created the same mandrake, but he did not ask and allowed to join. Nogd said it would be good to call Juno's sorceress. Mayor recalled that she had already accompanied them while hunting a dragon in the forest. Lord explained that Juno is attentive to the details and always helps in the little things, and therefore useful in difficult situations. He remembered how Juno helped to clean after dinner in nature. Even in this, it was indispensable. Juno confessed that she likes to do ordinary things, and she did not mind helping the team. She also said that she noticed how Lord Nogd pays attention to her, and she is pleased to work under the guidance of such a person. At that moment, Nogd realized that June was a librarian who always stayed silently in the shade. He tried to explain to her that it was not necessary to hide from people, because without the hood she looks great, but Lion came here and asked why June was involved in preparing for the hike. It turned out that she had already learned about the trip to the mines and could not believe that Juno again got into something dangerous. Not too long ago, she went in search of the dragon, but Juno replied with dignity that she had appointed Lord himself and she would be useful. Saito and Lion were surprised to watch Juno willingly go into a new adventure. Lord Nogd tried to explain Leona that Juno is a valuable member of the team and his participation is important. But Lion's sorceress was categorically disagreeing, and again, dawn of repeat. In the end, her protest merged into an endless number of objections. In the end, she decided, once she would have to hide June. However, she suddenly stated that this trip is too dangerous, so she would be personally accompanied by Mr. Nogd. Everyone was amazed, no one expected it, and Nogd realized that now he did not imagine what it would end. Before the campaign, the maid mayor confessed that she had bad anticipation, but she immediately dropped these thoughts so as not to cause trouble. Burden promised to protect everyone. Greg asked to look at Lion because he considers her a girlfriend. Lord Nogd realized that this time the battle is inevitable, and it is June that will be useful at a critical moment. And although it is no longer possible to hold back Lion, Nogd promised that he was glad to work with her side by side, and before the road, make sure that everyone is ready for any difficulty. Sito asked Gregor with interest why he took the mandrakes, and Lionette wanted to find out how far the mine was. Lord explained that the road to walk back and forth will take about 5 hours. Mayor sighed, it would be much faster with a cake, but Nogd took the business himself. Using the skill of improving objects, he increased the visa. Then he turned to Burden, the strongest of them, to pull up the slope. Forward, said the team. Burden effortlessly moved from the place, and the whole team went on the road. Only Greg was constantly whistling and asking to slow down. His mandrakes could not stand every pile, they flew in all sides, and he almost cried for them at every step. Finally, they got the foot of the mountain. Everyone froze, the scale struck even the most peaceful. The rock was several times higher than the estate of Lord Nogd himself, and looked powerful and majestic. Lion lifted her gaze and said that this place is perfect for new pioneers. But before you enter, she already wanted to rush inside, but the Nogd stopped it. First you should check the area around. There was an abandoned office, which once used the miners. The doors were locked, and it is clear that there was no soul inside. Greg wondered if Lord had a key. Nogd was starving. He remembered that he had lost the key to the whole object for a long time and could not remember where. Burden said she could knock the door, but Nogd immediately explained that it would be called damage to another's property. After considering the options, he thought to reduce the door, but Lion said that she did not need to hurry, she has a plan. The girl instantly created the right key with magic. She took up the ancient castle, and Nogd was surprised to think that it would once again be amazed by her abilities. In a few minutes, Lion nodded and invited everyone to go inside. Young Lord noted that the abilities of Leon resemble the skills of a skilled thief. It was said jokingly, but Leone was immediately offended and asked why she was not praised or stroked on her head like Burden. Nogd apologized and sincerely thanked her for his help. Then he wondered if Lion would be able to open the locked homes in his territory. She was glad and assured nothing would interfere with Lord Nogd. Inside the room, the guests met a suffocating stench and a thick layer of dust that covered everything around. Nogd mentioned that this house had not been used for half a year. Mayor confessed that she had never seen so much dust. Greg noted that the room is large. It is obviously housing for workers. He proposed to equip this place for further use. Lion reminded that the door had remained intact thanks, but Lord answered her restrained. He noted that these beds are not suitable for service, and the bed looks like a wet rice cake. The young lord decided that the first thing to start with was to put up in the room and improve the conditions. Mayer praised him for his predictability and promised to help everything. Burden found a box with bright stones. Noct explained that it is a fluorescent stones that responds to magic and begins to glow. One of the stones is slightly background through the magical aura in the air. If you press harder, it shines brightly like a lamp. Burden exclaimed that it was a real miracle. Lord Noct asked her to break one of the stones. Lion was surprised to spoil such a thing, but the Lord explained the wreckage was needed to illuminate the mine. He reduced the tools with the help of skills and gave everyone, it's time to get to business. Lion skeptically noted that all this looks absurd. The team went into the mine. Lord asked Burden to go ahead. Her sense will help to avoid traps, and Greg will cover everyone if they are attacked. He assured Lion that Greg and Burden had already won the King of Orcs, so they could protect the team. She was surprised but felt confidence. Greg remembered how during that battle, Noct himself showed a great skill. Lord jokingly said that this time they could hope for him, though there is not enough space for his magic. Lion reminded that she also was able to fight and asked not to underestimate her. Noct replied that she would agree when they reached the enemy. He recalled that although Lion was once in the Imperial Army, her true vocation was engineering, so why force her to what she is not ready for? The Lord ordered to move further, but it was at this moment that a spooky sound came in the darkness. Something was approaching. Giant monsters musicians began to climb from the depths of the mine, slowly but confidently approaching the arrivals. Greg and Burden immediately took combat positions, protecting his comrades from the attack of monsters. But to the surprise of everyone, Lion's witch was able to stop the monster magic before they were harmful. She proudly stated that it was their territory, and she would personally protect it. Noct suddenly realized what the Royal Magic Army really was. The mine was abandoned. After the invasion of the orcs, there was no employee left. It is almost impossible to use scaling techniques here through a close space. It is too dangerous. But the worst part is that the mine literally boils with monsters of different types, and it was only the beginning. Lord Noct acknowledged that the monsters were much more than they expected at the beginning of the expedition. And no matter how they destroy, new creatures have reappeared from all cracks. The frightened mayor asked what to do next, because the Lord himself was already too exhausted after the battle. Suddenly a giant monster emerged from the depths, something unknown, and Noct got worse, so everyone rushed to help. Meanwhile, the giant Burden did not stop and continued to impress enemies, like a storm, defending her master. Without frighten, she even laughed, straightening with another opponent. Mayor reassured Noct, nothing threatens with such a defender. But the Lord himself was on the verge, because these moonwing ants were much more dangerous than it seemed. In the swing of the battle, Greg asked Burden to be careful not to spread the entire mine. Noct was surprised by his attentiveness and care of his creatures. Despite the fatigue, Burden continued to lure the monsters one by one, not letting them slip. And Lion did not stand aside. Her earthen spears pierced enemies with incredible accuracy. She exclaimed that every destroyed monster is another step towards a cleaner, better world. Noct watched the team and rejoiced in their success, although he felt that only he perceives all this too seriously. And suddenly in the tunnel, a piercing howl that cut his ears. From the depths crawled something terrible. Lord shouted, warning everyone. It was a giant vampire flying mouse. He did not expect such creatures to be here. They could not imagine that vampire bats could reach this size. This creature was simply giant, and it is unknown whether there are more like it. After the attack, Greg looked at the destroyed monsters, whom he tamed himself. Noct shouted, warning that if this animal was devoured by its beast, Greg himself could be the next one. And suddenly it happened. The ultrasound of the flying monster was paralyzed by Burden, and it was immediately in the paws of the monster. Lion rushed to help and called on magical earthen spears to save the giant girl. In February, Greg rushed forward, promising to take revenge on his kabuki. He managed to hit the bat and snatch Burden out of his arms. Lord Noct did not waste time. He built a powerful earth shield that blocked the path of the monster. Lion was delighted with his skill. She noticed that the shield was perfectly even, without any crack, and wondered where Lord mastered such magic land. Noct said that it is probably due to hot baths, and as for the bat, he did not consider him the king. He was too ordinary in battle. In his opinion, it is just a mutant, and therefore the size went beyond normal. Further, the path stuck in a dead end, but the sharp eye of Mayer noticed a narrow gap near the floor. Lord instantly used the technique of enlargement and expanded the passage, creating a new tunnel to the north. Everyone froze. The ceiling of the cave glowed with lights of precious stones like a starry sky. Noct moved forward and asked for treasure. Lion explained that before them. Ordinary manatitis is a rare ore that can be perfectly combined with magical energy. If it is made of staff, the sorcerer's strength will increase several times, and in battle it turns into a real magical sword, which enhances endurance and gives new abilities. Such material is a rare luxury. At least 100,000 gold is required to equip one warrior, Noct realized. Before him, gold lived. Perhaps it was because of this that Raphael's merchant insisted on the visit of the mine. If you start prey, you can improve the whole settlement. Noct promised, if the case is possible, he will be able to easily pay even the annual tax and forget about all the financial problems. Mayer sincerely congratulated the master with such good luck, and Noct himself said, "It is time to immediately announce all of Raphael's merchant." The burdened giant suddenly grabbed the young lord and began to pull him deep into the mine. Nog tried to stop her and asked where she was leading him. The girl just smiled and said she wanted to show something important. Near the great manatitis, they saw several people who were digging. Lion immediately wondered who they were and to whom. Lord Nogt recognized these people. They have seen their faces once before. These were workers from the market and shopping benches, those whom he saw in a changed state. People were surprised to look at the young lord, not believing that they see him with his own eyes. Leoth was in surprise to ask if there were familiar Nogta. He confirmed former miners from the same mine. They have also been the inhabitants of the Great Small since the time of Lord was a child. Noct confessed that he had not seen them for a long time and asked how they were living now. The exhausted faces were visible. Their lives were difficult. With regret, Lord apologized for everything they had to endure. People answered timidly, but it was clear that they were scared and exhausted. Lord had bitterly acknowledged that he could not protect them during the invasion of orcs. But now he was genuinely happy about this meeting. He did not even hope to see familiar faces in the mine. 3 miners were amazed by the sincerity and warmth of their ruler. Nogt asked how they survived in such conditions. And here a chunky man appeared. He began to shout at the miners and accuse them of inaction. His cruelty went crazy. He humiliated the exhausted people and forced to produce manatitis immediately. Noticing the outsiders, the Grubian died and demanded explanations, who they are and who have the right to be here. Mayer hurried to help one of the beaten women by activating the cells. In response, Nogt stated that he was the owner of the territory of the Great Small, and I realized this brazen nothing more than a warder. The ham is a little faded, because he did not expect to see the real lord among the slaves in the mine. The miners whispered and trembled with fear of the foreman, and he suddenly became polite, greeted with Lord Nogt, and said with apparent respect, "That Lord Nogt with satellites is better to leave this place as soon as possible." The chief explained that the mine is located, as if at the same time belongs to the territory of the Gardlet and the Grand Malo, so it is difficult to determine the border. But specifically, this part, where they are now standing, already belongs to the territory of the Gardlets. The angry mayor asked if the neighbors were really going to assign the entire manatitis mine, and Nogt was stunning. After all his hopes could pay the annual tax. Rebecca will be very dissatisfied if he does not receive the promised funds. The foreman smiled mockingly and, seemingly sympathetic, stated that he was very sorry because of the upset of Lord Greater. However, Leont Witch called for a hurry to find out and asked if the Gardeltic representatives have evidence of the right to this mine. After all, this point is located on the neutral zone between the 2 possessions, and therefore none of the parties has the full right to it. Leonet added that it is worth honestly discussing this issue and deciding who actually owns the manatitis deposit. The arrogant chief cut her off, exclaiming that no one was right here to women. Without frightening its size, Leonet said coldly that the gender did not matter. In Nogt's chest, rage boiled. The behavior of the foreman was a real image for him as a lord. Such boldness was completely unworthy of a real gentleman. The chief grunted that he would talk only to Lord, although he acknowledged that there was a dispute. Both lords have to resolve issues, so he will inform his master to speed up the negotiations. Lord Noct agreed. Each side will take a little manatitis, and then everything will be decided at an official meeting. The chief was clearly dissatisfied with such an agreement and hurried to return to his own. Mayer was indignant at his arrogance and disrespect for Lord Noct. And Leonet sincerely thanked the young gentleman for his support. He showed the dignity of a real ruler. But Noct began to complain that all the problems had been added, and he has no idea how to solve it. Mayer tried to reassure him and advised not to lose dignity in public. The Joseph Begretsky mentioned that Gardlet's family was never a good neighbor. Even in the time of Nogt's father, under threat of attack from the Forest of Monsters, he asked for help. After all, there was an unspoken agreement between the lords of harsh lands, but despite this, the Guardlets never sent the army. They have rarely provided small resources, and not always, so the trust in the neighbors was minimal. In the midst of the conversation, the divided mayor brought a letter from the territory of the Guardlets. It had a short message, meeting tomorrow, without any details or explanations. The sender is the generic estate of the Guardlet. Mayor boiled from rage because of such disrespect for Mr. Noct. She barely restrained not to arrange a bloody massacre. But Raphael's merchant carefully reminded, to go to another's land is dangerous. If we underestimate the enemy, it can cost life. But Noct understood everything and still decided he would go. Lord knew that it was his duty, for the future of his people, for the chance of peace. Mayor praised him for his determination, because he woke up before that morning. Lord himself jokingly said that it is better to sacrifice sleep than to be late. Noisy Borden shook all the way, asking how much more to go. Noct patiently remarked that she would not pull the curtains. Today is an important day. There were serious negotiations ahead. The capital of the land of the Guardlet was already waiting for them. They did not know how they would be accepted, so the guard was vigilant. The city itself turned out to be majestic, and the arrivals involuntarily admired it. The negotiations were to concern the rare man at ore. Noct noted that he sees nothing. Their lands are the same. These may have not been the brutal raids of the orcs. Borden pointed to a tall and bizarre building with interest. Noct explained that Guardlet is a multinational country, so there are mixed architectural styles. He instructed Gailey and Ragu to explore the building to try to create something like this in their city. The Luss's hunters were informed that the city lives in the city. It may meet acquaintances. But Luss said with sadness that she is unlikely to know anyone. It is the only one who has left the village that is closed to the outside world. Nocta surprised this confession, but he did not ask. Everything learns later, and Luss at this time dreamed of just a glass of wine. Suddenly, the excited Borden exclaimed, "What is it for food that looks like dirt?" Noct laughed. It was brown. There was no similar in this world, and that is why he has already burned the desire to taste it. Lord Noct ordered a portion of carry and suggested that Borden to taste, but she looked at a dish with suspicion, which, in her opinion, looked like a regular mud. The brave Borden did not dare to take the first sip, though the aroma was seductive. Then Noct took the initiative and asked her just to open his mouth. Just as she swallowed a spoonful of brown, her eyes expanded. The dish was incredibly tasty. It struck Jael and Sito. They also wanted to try, and soon the whole company enjoyed an extraordinary local cuisine. Lord Noct, who missed the tastes of his native world, felt joy. He decided that this trip was not in vain. Bjarden jokingly suggested reducing the store and picking it home. Noct emphasized that Bjarden could buy food, the shop should remain normal, but he promised that at home he would cook brown for everyone. Although the prices were too high, he bought spices. He wanted to transfer this taste to his native land, and most rejoiced in emotional Borden, who had already dreamed of the next portion. He looked at the plate and remembered, a blanket, but the fun lasted until everyone remembered why they came here. The group reached the main building of the Gertlet family, which impressed with its grandeur. The Begretsky announced the arrival of Lord Noct. The guests were kindly invited inside. They were met by a polite man who immediately apologized to the Lord to such a glush. He introduced himself to the second kind of Guardlet, Lord Naris. Lord Noct also introduced and emphasized that he was glad to get acquainted with his neighbor. Naris suggested that you go to the case without delay. It was necessary to go about the right to extraction of a rare mineral manet. Noct remembered how carefully studied his father's archives and found no mention of the first discovery of this resource. He had no hope for a favorable agreement. He just hoped to get at least 40% of the deposits, but Norway shocked everyone. He stated that all the rights to the production of manatesite already belonged to him and his territory, and he was not going to discuss it. Noct asked why such confidence. Norway's replied, "Everything has long been recorded in the ancestral documents. He is ready to provide them." Noct denied that the documents should be common to both parties, but he had no one. Norway's only shrugged. "They say what you do." The excited Noct asked to show these documents immediately to check their authenticity, and Norway's agreed. Let him look himself. Considering the documents, Noct thought, Norway says very confidently. However, he later realized that it was only a well-played performance. It was almost impossible to expose falsification without evidence, but Lord suggested that the real documents could disappear during the Orc invasion. Because of this, the Noct could not be sure of the real situation. Everything looked too suspicious. He stated that the estate was not injured during the attack of the Orcs, so it was impossible to lose documents, and those that showed Naris is a skilled fake. The annoyed Norwees demanded evidence of falsification and asked whether Noct really wanted them to refuse what they belonged to them by law. Such a hint was bordered by arrogance. If Noct is silent now, it will be an unforgivable mistake. Norwees resorted to the ancient custom to resolve the disputes between the lords through military confrontation. According to this custom, both sides exhibit their troops in a certain territory. The pseudological is intended to resolve the dispute in a peaceful way, but Noct realized that he had been trapped. Norwees prepared counterfeit documents, invited Noct, not giving time to check, and in the conversation instantly put an ultimatum. Everything was designed in advance. Noct understood that for the sake of the resource it is not necessary to risk life, but if it now shows weakness, we'll lose respect, and the land will be perceived as defenseless. And then Norwees wants to pick up more than just manatesite. This will be the beginning for the Bigsmall family. The territory has recently been injured from the orcs, so the claim for battle was extremely unfair. Norwees replied to this that he would only put 100 soldiers for the balance. Noct can take how much he wants or how much he can. Lord thought this proposal was too suspicious, but Norwees insisted on finding out his final decision. The young lord apologized to the companions and went forward. And loudly saying the name Bigmaza, he accepted the call. He agreed to resolve the conflict through the battle. Norwees was happy and suggested to determine the place, date and time of the battle, advising to prepare well and not be late. On the way home, Noct told everything Gyril and Ragu. They supported him because it was obvious. Norwees deliberately provoked this war. Noct noted that at home he would have to apologize to everyone because the war began through him. Galna promised to help explain the situation. But as soon as Noct returned home, his friends met the news calmly. They did not condemn, but on the contrary, supported his decision. Juno proudly stated that she created a new deadly trap, a real surprise for enemies. Greg boasted that he strengthened his monsters. This was assured that she warned everyone in advance of preparation for war. Greg glanced at the Lord and struck that you never dreamed of him. He added the Noct looks weak, so he will definitely have to fight often. The rest will not have to be bored. But Noct explained that in this war they would not use traps. It should be an honest and controlled competition. The real pseudo will last for 10 days and will take place between the borders of Bigsmall and Hardland. According to the rules, only non-lethal weapons that do not cause serious injuries are allowed. The one who will be able to knock the enemy from the game will win. Lion at which was a chance to win. Noct assured that the arrangement limits the enemy to 100 soldiers. But it was not enough, so Noct decided to go to the Red Dragon for help. Grub asked why Lord was so excited and what brought him. Noct spoke about the pseudo between Bigsmall and Hardald and asked for support. He acknowledged that he was forced to agree to the conflict because the fate of the whole people depends on it. Young Lord emphasized that he knows the kindness of Grab and realizes that he does not like violence. But without his strength, it will be very difficult to defeat. This test can destroy everything they built. Noct assured that the country has just begun to develop and was already on the verge of collapse. It is impossible to lose. The Red Dragon replied calmly, if the Noct Lord is in danger, it will help. Stroke Noct thanked Grab and noted that this force could change everything. Saito was passionate about saying that an alliance with a powerful dragon is a historical solution. Even the Linen confessed that he was amazed. The Maid Major reminded, Lord Noct is not just a strong, but also extremely talented leader. Everyone immediately plunged into the preparation for the future battle. Active planning began. And suddenly, the announcement came to the castle from the kingdom itself. Lord Noct was surprised to see Rebecca as a messenger and asked why she was not yet released from the post of tax inspector. She replied that she is a civil servant and performs many functions, including a second-hand position. Lord thanked Rebecca for his hard work, confessing that he expected to see a regular clerk. She explained that she took part to reveal the secret of Bigsmall's rapid development. And if the reason for this success is the unique ability of Noct, then the kingdom may seek him for help in his business. But Lord himself thought with anxiety he does not want his secret at all. Rebecca added that if it were not for her, some of the hardlets close to the genus. Lord sincerely thanked Ribetets, promising to never forget her gesture. But she warned, as a second, it will be objective, regardless of the circumstances. Noct understood that the forces of the parties were unequal, because Lord Norwees has long been preparing for war, and Bigsmall has hopes for the horn of the Red Dragon. However, it is unknown exactly what power the enemy will put and what tricks he had to prepare. The population of the lands of Hardlet was 3 times more than the Noct, and all was ready for the start of the battle. The magical spell of Rebecca rose into the hot sky. The war began. This is how long-awaited pseudo-pseudo between Bigsmal and Hardlet through a rare resource manatitis. Greg Trader has announced that they were confident in victory because their soldiers have a true combat experience, including after a battle with orcs in victory over their king. But Lord Nog did not share his optimism. This time, rivals are not monsters, but people capable of treachery and treachery. It will be the first battle between people. Therefore, you should be prepared for any surprise. Nogt reminded that the war will last 10 days, 4 of which for the placement of troops, and this will be the decisive stage of the whole conflict. After all, not the one who has the strongest weapons, but the one who is best prepared. Friends rejoiced in many healing elixirs. Even without fatal wounds, it would be useful. Lord noted that manatite is a precious resource. Therefore, it is possible to be clever for winning. He also boasted a favorable agreement with Raphael Merchant, who sold resources at a significant discount. The Nog team was full of confidence. Meanwhile, Lord Norwys watched the opponent's preparation, evaluating each step. He came to the conclusion that Nogt seems to have exhausted all his resources, and now he has nothing to surprise. Feeling much taller, Norwys contemptuously mentioned the young lord, considered him a naive fool. Lord was convinced that if you are afraid to take risks in the circular, you will quickly begin to think like a common man, which is the end. Because this is how the defeat comes when you do not even notice how you turn into a failure, and the Nogt, they say, made 2 small stakes. Although he has enough resources, the soldiers will barely gain 30. This is not enough to win. Without labor, it is impossible to erect a fortress in a matter of days, and this will become a decisive factor in the war. So Norwys reminded his soldiers that the time to strengthen is enough, only 4 days. And everyone should be full, because the victory begins with trenches. With a mocking smile, he asked how the idea of a 96-hour change. Soldiers were silent, the prospect seemed to be hell, and they began to curse the fate. Rebecca responsibly performed the duties of a second, watching both camps. She decided that she is here. Lord Hardlet will not risk going to completely dirty tricks, although even without them, his advantage is obvious. But she was curious, what would surprise the Nogt if she dares to the unexpected move? Everyone was waiting for the beginning of the battle, someone with fear, someone with interest, and someone carefully prepared. A detachment of royal sorcerers, led by Lion, created a protective moat with the help of earth magic. Young Lord Noct decided to help himself. Lionetta wondered if she would use the magic of the soil again, as in the mine. Noct explained that he intends to use a technique similar to that used in the game with structures, creating a block of earth through imagination. Using the ability to reduce objects, he accurately determined the size of the required land platform and created it with accuracy and speed. Lord Norwys, who followed every movement, immediately realized, before him, perhaps a detachment of the elite magicians of the earth, and the Nogt himself turned out to be much stronger than he thought. This meant that opponents were used to frequent fights and had intricate protection techniques, capable of embarrassing anyone. However, Norris's army commanders assured that it is not necessary to worry, they have a solution for any challenges. Suddenly, Juno shuddered at acute pain and fell to the ground. Lord Noct immediately rushed to her. He did not understand that he could so much impress the mighty witch in the midst of preparation for battle. He asked embarrassed why she got lost and what happened to her, but the answer could hardly be disassembled. Juno, exhausted, confessed. She was silent because she wanted to be useful for Mr. Noct. Meanwhile, Norwys was glad. A stupid witch has destroyed itself. Such magic cannot be used without consequences. Lionetta also confessed that he is exhausted and is no longer able to spell. She has rushed to help, activating the cells of the witch with its healing power. At the same time, Meve grunted like the old Joseph, that magic cannot be spent like water from a bucket. Gaelner and Rog said they had time to act, witches have to rest. Gaelna, as always, created the perfect model of the fortress and handed it to the Nogt Lord. The young master of the lands of the great and the small used the magic of the increase, and before everyone put a huge, magnificent castle. Lord Norwys exploded from rage, shouting that it was a deception of magic. Suddenly, Norwys himself began to dim his eyes. He became ill, the world stamped. He stood sharply, murmuring something incomprehensible, and his warriors looked up, discussing, did anyone go to the owner himself?